go ahead and get started with day 2 of our planning workshop. This morning, we're going to continue on with department head reports. And then we will, after break and into the afternoon, we'll then have conversation around our CIP and the potential bond referendum that the board was looking at possibly putting on the ballot in November. So I would say, as I stated yesterday, we just need to remember that the planning work that we do now impacts our community for not only the next year, but for many years to come. And that I encourage you to be strategic and forward-thinking and lay out the best laid plan possible for our community as we move forward. Mr. Roberts, do you have anything else that you would like to add at this point?
Yeah, we'll get more cake mix today. And then we're going to talk about the cake later this afternoon. So the reason we did this is it's really capital intensive, as we get closer to the big ticket items are towards the end of the day, but you need to see what was in the cake. So that's it. I say let's roll.
Yeah, I would say the only other piece to that is remember that those cake ingredients, right? If we're going to keep with the cake analogy, those are investments. They're investments in our community. I would challenge the board not to just spend money. That's not our purpose, nor the intent, but to invest in our community and to do right by our citizens. With that, the first department up is the Lake Norman EDC. Mr. McDaniels? Hey, good morning, Ryan. How are you? Tell us about all the great work that's been going on at the EDC.
Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to speak and start things off, and hopefully we'll stay on schedule today. And feel free, ask a lot of questions. I'd prefer this be interactive than just me up here speaking, but wanted to start off always with our organizational goal. We do represent the 3 towns, but main focus on bringing more jobs and more investment into the community, as well as helping the companies that are here grow. And wanted to show, we updated this to have our full board this year, that showed how many folks either live in Huntersville or work in Huntersville. So everyone who's in bold either has a facility in Huntersville or works in Huntersville or lives in Huntersville, sorry. You see we have a couple of folks who've joined the board recently, Nancy Perry, and as well as Marcus Smith with Bank of America. So we've added a couple of folks. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of turnover with our board with really unfortunate circumstances, but we're bringing on the new Mecklenburg County ED director once that position's filled. So excited to have that person coming on our board. Sorry, my son is calling. Project activity, so we restructured in 2013. So we've had a really nice stretch, and this is just specifically Huntersville projects. So $229 million worth of new investment, new capital investment in the town, 729 jobs and over 1.2 million square feet. And we're very intentional and cautious when we report projects. So a great example is NSI, a great company that's located, a great company that's located in the park. Now, we have not directly worked with them, so that would not be included in the project activity. And we follow the state's guidance there. A great example of that is the Toyota project that landed in the Triad. Even though it is in North Carolina, the EDPNC did not work that project, so it's not included in their figures. So we're very cautious and conservative and make sure we were actively involved with the project before we include it in those figures.
So Ryan, just to be clear, so we've had the conversation around the close to 4 million square feet of flex space that has been coming out of the ground in Huntersville, but that's not included in your numbers because you didn't necessarily work with those entities.
That's correct. Yeah, we work with the developers, but if it's a spec project, we would not include that. Now, once a company would occupy space, we would include that. So in fact, we're hopefully going to have potentially 3 announcements coming up soon. When companies take space in a building, if we're actively engaged with that, we would include that in those figures. But yes, great point.
Thank you.
So project count, we're actually up to 35 now. We just added a expansion R&D project in Huntersville yesterday. So that happened obviously after the PowerPoint was prepared. You can see 73% of our total projects are now in Huntersville. So a large portion, an uptick. And I think that's reflective of the spec industrial space that's been built in the area. Simply, you have more space now, and you're going to see more projects. And you can see where we are. Actually, that finalist would now be 3, because we do have a project here in the park that's looking to expand and add an R&D facility. So you would be up to 3 finalist projects now. And the status of that, you may wonder what's follow-up, what's visits. We actually have a CRM system we use. Follow-up means simply we received a project from the state or the alliance or a broker, and we sent information off, and we haven't had them on the ground yet. Visits, that probably makes sense. They've been on the ground here in Huntersville. And then finalist means we're more than likely going to get that project. It's, they're making a real estate decision or negotiating with the broker or the property owner at this point. So I wanted to bring up some of the hot industry sectors. And this is primarily for the state of North Carolina, but it's also reflective here in Huntersville. EV production, you see it all the time as the transition from gas-powered vehicles to electric-powered vehicles. So batteries, chargers. I'd probably say it's 40% of the state's projects right now, which is amazing, and it's very exciting. We've got a couple of great companies that are in that space here in our sector, as well as food and beverage manufacturing. We have that made it through the pandemic. We all obviously had to eat. And that sector stayed strong, even though coming out of the pandemic back into more traditional day-to-day business, food and beverage continues to be hot for our region. This is a lot to absorb, but I thought it was really interesting. This is obviously on the left, 2016, an aerial of the town, and then on the right, 2022. I tried to get them as lined up as possible. But at the upper segment on Sam Fur Road, you can see the expansion.
There should be a point over there, Jack can show you.
Oh, here we go. Laser pointing. All right, you can see here on Sam Fur, the expansion there at Jamesburg Drive. So those buildings are already filled up, which is great to see. Down at Commerce Station, you can see the expansion at Reynolds, and then the 2 silver buildings that were built. Down in Brighton, you can see the 3 buildings that were completed. There are 3 more buildings under construction there. And then if you just look at the park, you can see Orlicon, you can see Safeguard, you can see some of the additional buildings. So it is really eye-opening. And if you look at the peanut here, as we call it, a little Reese Boulevard, we really have filled that out. So I thought it was helpful just to take a step back, excuse me, and see just how much growth we've had in 6 years or so. It's funny, sometimes when we talk to citizens, they drive through and they're just overwhelmed, especially in the park to see what's happened. We had a client in town that was from the Middle East, and they asked, they drove to our office and said, we don't see a lot of manufacturing in your area. We took them out to see a building at the park, and they said, okay, we get it now. You definitely have manufacturing and growth occurring. They just happened to be in the Burkdale area where there was more office. But tremendous amount of growth, and you can see down here in the Patterson Road area where we're going to see additional spec buildings coming up. But really exciting to see that, and with the white roofs, it really pops off here on the aerial. I wanted to highlight a couple of things we worked on this year. We did create an app, which is available for any citizens to use, as well as we have a separate section for our executive committee, staff, and then board members. So we use this to send out information about what's happening in the area. Luckily, the local vendor we used, we actually passed the information along to the town, and the town's using the same vendor now. So that worked out really well. We're meeting with him next week to further our dialogue and make sure, is there anything we can do to improve the app? It's actually been pretty helpful. One of the things we heard from our board is their email boxes are just simply overwhelmed. And it was helpful for us. We can shoot out a notification on the app, board minutes, agendas, pops up on the app, and people can take a quick look. Virtual tours. This is something that we started before the pandemic, but we've continued to grow. So you can actually go to our website and click through and see, click the video, and you can actually click through, and there's different areas of the buildings in the park. And it's a 360 view. You can turn your camera around and see the entire building. The good news is Selwyn Northridge just leased up. And Rama Executive Park is basically leased up. So we're going to have to update this with the new buildings coming on board in Brighton. But this is something we've added. The big advantage is, obviously it's best to be in person, but if you're talking to someone from California and you're trying to explain a building, it's really nice to be able to say, hey, click this link, and you can see a nice 360 tour. And this has actually been a big advantage for us, and it's something we're going to continue to grow. Especially as we add more buildings, especially here in the Huntersville area. Workforce development is a big buzzword in our industry, and Elizabeth wanted to be here. She apologizes. She's actually in New York at a funeral this week, but she's our workforce development manager. She's done a great job hitting the ground running for us. It's been great to have somebody focused on that full time. We actually won an award from the Central Atlanta Regional Council for our efforts in workforce development. This is an event that's called Journey 360. The picture on the left is the KERS facility in the park, and those are students talking to employees from KERS, learning a little more about their business. And we do that to help educate the students, the counselors, the teachers, the principals about how clean, how efficient, how nice our manufacturers are. And we've actually had 3 to 4 students already hired as an outcome of these efforts. So it's been really helpful. Thanks to Mayor Bell, she's part of our team. We have we break up into different companies when we visit. And we have a running text string of all the comments from the high schoolers, and it's amazing to see their interest. They're so pumped. They're like, wow, we had no idea this was here. This is super cool. I'd love to work here. So it's really been successful. Then we wrap that up with a tour of the Maracas campus, and they give a presentation on some of the opportunities that are there. So now that we have someone full-time, we're doing 2 of these a year, and it's really been a hit for us. And we're seeing the success of getting those students in the facilities to understand that there are career paths and opportunities in our community that do not require a 4-year degree. We've also added a couple of things, speed networking, which has stayed virtual just simply because we can touch all 3 high schools at one time and we can get more students in. It's the logistics of trying to get hundreds of students connected to business leaders obviously can be quite a task, but doing it virtually, they're able to log in from their classrooms, and it's worked very well. We've also had Elizabeth and myself speak on different panels. Because this is such a hot topic in economic development, and we're one of the few agencies, probably nationwide, that have a full-time person, especially for our size. We've had a lot of interest, and people have asked us, how did you set up the job description? What does the day-to-day look like? And actually Elizabeth will be speaking at an emerging executives panel next week in Winston-Salem as well. So I think we've hit a home run by bringing on someone, and we're seeing a lot of interest from our competition, and we're willing to help, obviously, because it's good for the region and for the state. We also, we formerly had what we call our manufacturers mingle. We've converted that just to a mingle now. So we bring in our investors, our local business leaders, citizens, and we have topics that hopefully are relevant. This past year we've had 2. We had one at KERS, that's on the left, Pester's on the right. And the Pester event, we focused on sustainability and trends. So we have sort of rapid 10 to 15 minute speeches by each company. And then we had a local food truck brought in afterwards and allowed folks to network. And that was a big success, and we're going to continue to grow that event. Looking forward to that in the next year. With that, I wanted to provide our contact information. We do have our website, LNEDC, and then Ascend LKN. That's our workforce development website. So you can see our three main focus areas: IT, healthcare, and then advanced manufacturing. And then our contact information is below. So feel free to ask any questions. I'll be glad to answer.
Ryan, I was just gonna say at the last mingle at Kerr's, one of the things that I found interesting and just thrilling, really, was to see that industry leaders from a global perspective having that conversation in their native language as they're standing there, you know, a German company with a German company and a Swiss company with a Swiss company, and watching them interact and engage just even in their own native language, I thought was very cool. That's right here in Huntersville.
Yeah, it was
you know?
amazing. I think at one point we had 3 different languages being spoken in the
Yes.
same meeting. So yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah.
And that success is, especially the German-speaking companies, has led to more companies landing in the area. And our job's to pitch the area, but it's so much more valuable to have a German company tell a German company, this is a good place to be, or a Spanish company tell a Spanish company, this is a good place to be.
Absolutely. Open it up for any comments, discussion, questions? One of the things that came up yesterday was regarding downtown and encouraging businesses to grow in our downtown area. And I did want to say that, you know, there's been conversation around, is that something that the EDC could help with smaller mom-pop shop businesses in our downtown, kind of that Main Street project?
Oh,
if you will?
absolutely, yeah, we'll help, you know, one-person shop, we're glad to help with. We work a lot with Jack and the planning staff here, and they do a great job, and what we try to do is get them to the right people first, so that they don't get too far along and have an idea that might not work, but absolutely glad to work with the downtown folks, and it's different, and it's actually, it's interesting, sometimes the smaller projects require more assistance, because they just don't have the staff of a big multinational firm. But we're absolutely glad to help and love to expand all 3 downtowns, and anything we can do to assist, we're there.
So I would say then to board members, if you've got people coming to you asking for direction and support, point them to Ryan.
Absolutely, yeah.
And let him help them navigate through the process.
Yeah, we've helped folks who want to convert a house into a restaurant. We've helped with that. And then we've assisted with, you know, someone who needs 120,000 square foot of office space. So small to large, we're glad to help.
Sweet. Commissioner Phillips?
I had that as a note from yesterday to cover.
Okay. Commissioner Kidwell?
Yeah, Ryan, excuse me. Yesterday we discussed, and I'm glad Jack's next to you, discussed the potential of, what do we call it, Jack, Main Street business?
Main Street program.
Yeah, and Commissioner Boone brought up a great idea of you being a part of that, and I know Mayor just touched on that a bit. And then I threw out the aspect of including the local chamber. What is your bandwidth on, and you know nothing about it, I'm sure you didn't watch our 8-hour meeting
I
yesterday.
did want some, yes.
Well, God bless you. But I think it would be, I don't know if you could get with Jack and maybe Commissioner Boone, be a great opportunity. It's where, you know, like, I could send someone to you about a restaurant, or we start creating a point person that handles the smaller businesses. You know, not just for our community, but also Cornelius, also Davidson, you know, the whole north region here.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it could be potential to where another growth factor within our area. Not just the big ones, but, you know, these larger companies, they support and they build and they grow the smaller businesses around it. So just a thought.
Absolutely glad to help, and I think it's something that's terribly important, because the majority of your growth comes from small businesses, and it's people adding 2 people, 3 people at a time. The big projects get a lot of attention when you bring 100 people in, but the majority of job growth in your community is that, you know, 3 to 4 And we're glad to help, and you're exactly right about, we get a lot of questions about what can we do for small business. The big business is helping a big way, and I think a great example is one of our businesses that moved in. Their vice president bought a house in Northstone, bought his car over at Huntersville Ford, and then you just see that money trickling through the economy. So absolutely glad to help, and no business is too small. Even startups, we're glad to assist. And we partner a lot with the chamber, so glad to help there.
And just, the chamber, Bill Russell is a member of the board too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you work closely with him.
He's on.
Correct, and he's on the chamber board.
Yeah, we all, myself, Bill, and then Sally, who runs Visit Lake Norman, we're all ex officios on each other's boards, so we have constant communication.
Commissioner Boone?
Thank you. Brian, thank you for your presentation. 4 years ago, you came here and said we are in desperate need of flex office space. And I think you solved that, so I want to say thank you for that. Is there a need in the town of Huntersville or Cornelius for Class A office space?
I would say yes, and
You hesitated though. Why did you hesitate?
well, if you look at our project mix, we miss projects because we don't have the real estate. So it's hard sometimes to quantify. So for instance, trying not to give it confidential, the ACC project that went to Charlotte, we submitted a site for that, but our office wasn't large enough. We didn't have a large enough plate. So we didn't make the first cut because simply we just didn't have the space. I think there's an opportunity, if you look at our demographics, we're highly educated, close to Charlotte, all the amenities, all the reasons why we live here. I think Class A office could work. Right now, we have probably, I'd say 2 opportunities in the park from sublease space, but we don't have any of the brand new space that folks are looking for. So I think it would work. We just need, it's hard to quantify, for instance, because a company could say right now, all right, we need 50,000 square feet of Class A office space. Well, they're overlooking us. But if we had that product, we would see project opportunities. So, if you talk to the folks at the Alliance, you talk to the folks at State, I think the suburban office market is very strong. And folks are, looking at mixed-use opportunities. They're looking at areas where you can walk to lunch, amenities nearby. So I think we have a lot of the key points that folks are looking for. We just don't have the space right now, so.
Okay. Well, my last question is that I appreciate what you do for the junior college and the high school students, but what do you say to that person that's going to lose your job in 2 or 3 weeks? Where do they apply for these jobs that you say are in the business part? How do you direct those people to fill out an application, especially if they don't have the skills or a computer at home? What would you say to that folks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on our website, Ascend LKN, we do have a lot of our jobs listed, but as you alluded to, if they're lacking internet access or, computer opportunity, we actually, I think it was right before this shutdown, we were gonna work to have an event here, where people could come to town hall. We were gonna have computers set up, and provide assistance for people if they needed to log in, do a resume, do a job application. Unfortunately, everything's sort of shut down. We're wide open to that. If we hear there's a need in the community for that, we're glad to assist. And people can call our office, email, stop by, and we can provide assistance with that, trying to direct them to the right opportunities. A great example is Southwire, for example. If you try to go to Southwire, there's a gate. So we've really tried to connect Southwire to our community. They have openings and they're looking for folks. Reynolds are looking for folks as well. So it's really just making that connection and trying to get the word out that, yes, our companies are hiring. There are great opportunities out there, and they will train you on site. So it is tough sometimes with the digital divide, but if there's any way we can assist with that, we'll be glad to provide that.
Well, I think it's a good idea to have a local job fair where people can come in and drop in and apply for jobs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Ryan, we talk about Class A space. Class A space has a lifespan of 10 years, roughly, because it's, I mean, when you define Class A space, it's newer, more modern, a little bit more parking. Class B, 10 years older, not as modern, still has the parking. Class C, definitely not modern, very little parking. Class D, coffee shops, working from home. So when we talk about Class A space, and I'm glad Commissioner Boone brought it up, and our need for it, we'll always have a need for it. There will always be a need. Every 10 years, we're gonna need Class A space because Class A becomes Class B becomes Class C, and then Class D is redeveloped. When we, and I'm glad, how much, when you're taking people around and they're looking at our area to invest in, how much is the conversation saying, boy, if you only had Class A, sorry, I'm getting a call from Canada, not your son.
Oh, nice.
How much is the conversation saying, we'd like to invest in our manufacturing here, but there's just not enough Class A space?
I think in terms of the manufacturing side, I think we're in a really good position right now, obviously with millions of square feet going up. And in our world, it's always easier to fill an existing building than a greenfield project. Greenfield projects require a lot of work, obviously, to construct a facility, get through zoning. So I think we're in a good position now, and the nice thing is the pipeline's strong in terms of, all right, we have all the buildings we just looked at, and they're getting filled up, but there's more buildings coming in the pipeline. So I think on the industrial side, good. The office side, I hate to go back to that same analogy, it's hard to tell sometimes because when the state sees a project or the alliance sees a project, they go in the same database we have and they just pull up, here are the different office spaces that are available. So I know we're missing out on opportunities on the office side, simply because we don't have the space right now. And you're exactly right about the requirement to upfit space and remodel and keep it fresh. You look at Burkdale Landing, near our office, what they did to remodel that and, put a fresh look on it, looks great now. So now, I think that's something we're gonna see moving forward with some of our buildings, office space that needs a refresh. And people are gonna make that investment, but it's hard, it's sort of it's the hardest thing in our business. Someone could be on our website right now looking for our office space and we might not have it. And they're just moving on to the next community. So it's the chicken and the egg, which really makes it tough.
So, follow-up question on that. With the state statistics, are we able to see what we're losing out across the state as far as where Class A office space is already built compared to what we have here?
So we can get that from the Alliance and probably from the state. That's
Or from
something, we could ask for. And basically it would be, I would ask for project information, square footage, project name, and they would probably give me that.
I think that'd be good for the board as we move forward with a lot of projects going down the line. Please, and thank you.
Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. I imagine they would be able to give it, as long as it's obviously without the company information, we could probably get it.
I want the company information.
Yeah, me too.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, just kind of following up on that. One of the things that you said that caught my attention was walkable amenities and walkable restaurants. So if there were Class A office space available kind of somewhere off the beaten trail, how would that compare to somewhere where there are immediately available walkable amenities, walkable restaurants? Because I can tell you, as a consultant, when I go to an office location where I get to walk to restaurants, love it. But just wanted to give it overall, the feedback I'm getting from you is it would be nice to have another tool in the toolbox.
Absolutely, and the walkability is huge, especially for the next generation who's coming into the workforce. You look at South End, look at the rates they're getting on their office rates right now. It's incredible because that's where there's restaurants nearby, there's apartments nearby, so it's vital. And we hear it from companies as well. They want to have a nice day, go out and walk to lunch. If they nice morning run by the dry cleaner or something. So it's a huge amenity. I think it's something. Luckily, all three towns have done an excellent job with the greenways, sidewalks, continuing to invest in pedestrian safety. It makes it easier for our office users to land here. We had one company, unfortunately, they moved away to, ironically, South End. But I remember I went to visit their facility, and they had one person who drove to the office. I think they had maybe 15 or 20 employees. Everyone else walked, rode their bike, or two people actually Ubered every day, back and forth. Yeah. So that was eye-opening to me. It was a young software company as well. So those are the companies we want to attract, and I think having those amenities nearby is huge. And luckily, I would say for all three towns, we have that, and the downtown areas are strong and vibrant. But it's something people are definitely looking for. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Barty?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for your presentation. And to piggyback on Boone, because most of the questions that I was going to ask have been asked and answered, but when I put a case together, I have to corroborate the information and substantiate my decision. The data that you have, or that you're quoting, that you state that you have regarding Class A office space, how soon can we get that data as a board to justify that there's a need in this town for Class A office space?
It should be fairly easy. I know the Alliance and the state, we use Salesforce, so I can go in our system and it takes 5 minutes. And I've actually
I'd like to
showed
have that because I have to make a decision, coming up within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have something in front of me so that I can justify my decision.
Absolutely. What I'll do, if you go back to our board, Danny Chavez, who runs the recruitment agency for the recruitment side for the Alliance, is on our board. I'll reach out to Danny, and then I can work up through our state contacts as well. So I'm gonna try to get a Charlotte region view.
Right,
And
yeah.
a state view, so you'll
Oh,
see.
that'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Anything else?
And I'm excited to see those numbers as well, actually. So as soon as I get it, I'll shoot it to Anthony.
Yeah. It's like putting a case together.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're now going to go ahead and move into communications, public information. Ms. Strickland, how are you this morning?
I am great, thank you very much. So I'm going to start with less office type thing and talk more about organization. That's okay. So last year when I stood before you, I talked about a mudroom. I'd been here at that time 5 months, and that's how I described what I felt like the town had as far as communications. We had a mudroom. We had a lot of shoes, and we were trying to keep it organized, and regardless of how we stacked it, it was still a mudroom. A lot of people were doing their best with the tools that were given, and so I wanted to bring this slide back just to say, so a year ago, we had 13 social media sites. We had one website that none of us were pleased with. We had over 50 email lists, and we had some communications databases that were moderately maintained. That's how I would, and I still now, I will say to Bobby, I will reference the mudroom. The mudroom. Okay, so I'm just going to move ahead to this year where we are right now, and we've tidied our mudroom. I would like to say, I feel like it is much more organized, but it is still somewhat of a mudroom. So just the things that we have added, we still have all those sites. Well, we've dropped a few and added a few, but we still have sites, but they're active. That makes a difference. Our engagement numbers are way above where they were last year. We've continued to grow followers, but our engagement numbers are really what matters. The board approved the social media policy, so we have a policy that all sites would follow. We have a website now that is truly ADA compliant, not just partially or in the process. We're compliant with ADA standards. We have updated our HOA database. Now, that was not a small undertaking, and really it was the work of a summer intern because we have 99 communities listed in Huntersville. 99 on that spreadsheet. They may not all have an HOA, but they all have something, a Facebook page, a website, a management company. So we really tried to find information on the communities that may not have been a part of our database before. We've updated the downtown database. We did have, Parks and Rec had the downtown database for the events. Bobby had a downtown database for projects. Lindsay and I took those two, we merged them, we walked around, we spoke to people, we went to their places of business. We tried to create a database that was, I would say, more vibrant and accurate. Updating the media list, that was a given. So everything else on this list is new since last year. Since I stood before you, everything else on this list is new. We started a podcast. We created and are maintaining an online engagement portal. Yes, we have a big thing called 150th anniversary celebration. We now have a YouTube channel. We have community engagement activities that are regularly planned, and we have a mobile app. So if you look at that, the bottom half of that list, we did not have last year when I was standing in front of you. I think the important piece, though, is what did we do well and what do we still need? In our opinion, our social media sites are strong. We did well. There's consistent activity. There are policies to follow. There's a lot more engagement. Again, I mean, I appreciate if people follow us or if that goes up 10 or 15%, but what's more important to me is if we engage with that, even if they're yelling at us. You know, when you put something out there and you're trying to educate people about what the state is doing, you just put on your armor and get ready for the questions. But it's important that we answer those questions so that we can try to help people understand or we get them to the right location. Our databases are updated. That took a lot of effort, and it will continue to take effort, but not starting from where we were last year at this time. I think we launched well. Our podcast, I will say, and since he's in the room, I can just go ahead and say, our second podcast was with Mr. Fox. We talked about roads. Over 100 downloads on just the second podcast that we did. So thank you, since he snuck in the back. Sorry, Michael, Kevin beat you on the downloads. But it tells you what people are interested in, and if we pay attention to the statistics and the analytics, we will be able to provide the information that people want. So I think we launched well. I'll talk about that more on the next slide. Our engagement hub, I know we had been looking, and prior to my arrival, Bobby had been looking for years to find a way to engage with the entire community, to hear from more people, to reach out to more people. We launched this online hub in November. We have already had 300 plus people participate. Those were numbers that I honestly did not expect. We've done 3 surveys on how do you want us to communicate with you and how do you want to communicate with us. We've done town hall survey, and then we did the police community survey. More than 300 people said, hey, we'll give this new program a shot. It's available on our website. It's very easy to use. You can create profiles or not. You can comment anonymously or not. And it obviously has felt, I think, comfortable for people. And we're seeing a lot more agencies and municipalities join the public input platform. I know we plan to use it for some of our transportation and mobility studies. There's plenty of other things that we can add to that. I just think that one was a quick win for us, and we honestly came in at the lowest level of that platform on what services we purchased, and we're hoping that we might expand that. Huntersville 101, we did well because last year I did 3 sessions, not 1, not 2, but 3. That was a lot, but we had a backlog. So this year, we will probably go back to the 2, but we had a lot of engagement from people, and so we managed to do 3. 150th anniversary could be its own presentation. Quite frankly, it's a lot bigger since it's year-long. We knew that was big, but day-to-day, it's a lot bigger. Yes, sir, Commissioner.
So I want to interrupt you right there. With the 150th anniversary on the app, which, by the way, I love the app.
Thank you.
I've shared the app with all my neighbors in my community because frankly, I get tired of the text messages of, is this recycling week or not? Hey, go to the app. It tells you. You can sign up for alerts. So, but on the 150th anniversary, the app, it's got the little birthday cake there, 150th anniversary events, but it only shows like three events or 4 events. And I know, I was speaking with one of the committee members last night, I know there's more than that. And there's more information of that. I don't know if we could expand upon that because my wife is probably, I know she's my biggest critic. And she's also, she is very difficult on me with the town. So yeah, I shared the app and I could check the app out. She's looking, she goes, where are these events? This is our 150th anniversary. Where are the events? Where are the, I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'll find out, and just to let you know, Mike, same with Parks. What's going on with Parks? I want to know what's going, she's on it. I mean, she puts it on my calendar. You need to be here. This is going to be awesome. We're going to this. It's not even a, hey, would you like to go? It's this type of thing. So I think that, I mean, right now it says, January 7th, February 25th, September 23rd, and December 23rd. That's the only events listed on there. And I think there's a lot more. I think having it on the app and, so people can see, and even our Huntersville Hangouts, community gathering thing, you're throwing those on there, letting people know as they go.
I think it's
My
a
2
great-
cents.
Thank you. Really, the ones that are listed are the ones that were planned. And so far, we've only had the one addition that we know of, but there are others coming. So I think we'll make sure that that does appear. Anything even if it's a small thing, we can add it to the list. We've got a lot of ideas, we just don't have them necessarily confirmed. But yes, sir, we can certainly add those. It has been amazing how receptive the community has been to the 150th. It's been, people are excited. The media is excited. They've asked lots of questions about that. So it is certainly something that we can look into, yes.
You gotta go to the mic.
You just use mine.
The committee decides, since we have another 30 or 40 events we do every year, we're going to tie the 150th theme into those other events we do anyway. So that was kind of the thought process of the committee. We have these 4 new events, but we're also doing other stuff at our existing events.
Include those then, include those events as part of, right?
Yeah, because I mean, 150, it's a big deal. It's a big 150 years as a town. We're old. We got some age to us.
I guess one
let's
example
celebrate.
is our beach night for Lollapalooza. It's part of the Lollapalooza series, but the idea is we'll do a huge sand art with the 150th logo. So there's different ways of celebrating at existing events. But we put all of our events in that one location once.
I think it would just help, really get it out there more. And as we continue to promote the app so people can see.
Great idea. Yes, sir. I know that, I don't want to get ahead, but I know there are some plans for some really cool things in the fall that we're waiting to get some numbers on. But yes, to make it more of here's what's happening in town related to, instead of just town-centric. So we can certainly do that and work with Parks and Rec to make sure that both information cycles include everything related to it. So YouTube, I know that was quite a discussion, us moving to YouTube away from Facebook. When we added YouTube in February of last year, it's only been a year, less than a year, and we're already over 130 subscribers. It was a good move. We've had less interaction, and I'm scared to say it because I'm not sure how much of this is real wood around me, but we've had less problems with YouTube. We have an occasional bot or something come through, but overall, we haven't had the same issues. So we can now do more things with YouTube because we exceeded our 100 subscriber. And that's kind of like their baseline. Once you get 100, we consider you legit and we'll let you do more. So we can add to that. The community engagement activities, truly, we've tried to be at most things that Parks and Rec have done. You've seen some of the other activities. You'll see more. Whatever we end up calling it, these pop-up events, I'm very thankful that our first one of the year was amazingly successful. And to give out 96 slices of cake, that's 96 people we told about our 150th celebration. So it was a great way to quantify, and who doesn't like cake? So quantify it with cake and everybody's happy. But the mobile app, yes. Thanks to Ryan and the EDC, they put us in touch with a developer that they use for their app. It is very easy to use. Our contract said we needed to push it until we had 100. Well, we're only a few months in and we're already over 140. We'll continue to do that. The great thing is I'm meeting with Samuel in a few weeks. They're starting to get some feedback on what people want added. So some of that is doable, some of it is not. Real-time road detours, I think Stephen or Kevin would really harm me if I even said that's what we want to start trying to put out, because we can't keep up with what everybody else is doing. But there are things that we can add to the app. It's very easy to manage administratively, so it has been a definite win. Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs, for pushing that to make sure that we didn't give up on that opportunity. Now, here's, my closet got so much better, every picture. Here's what I still think we need to improve and change, our website. We said we were gonna stick with the website and do the best we could with it. Okay, we're still sticking with the website and doing the best we could, but we need a better design. We need a better contract or a better vendor. We still do. Now, before, and because I did listen yesterday to some of the discussions, I think we have come up with a way to get a good another year out of it. Because if I come to you and say, we're gonna change vendors, then what you're gonna see in the budget request is about 50 or 60 grand. I think based on what you heard yesterday, I'm not really sure my request would even trickle to the top. But we have pushed them. Our contract ends with them in June, but we're eligible for it's part of our contract, but we're eligible for a redesign in 2024. We have consistently told them how frustrated we are with them and their process, and they have agreed to give us a redesign this year at no cost. So I'm standing before you saying, unless you guide us otherwise, and we have talked about it as a communications committee, but unless you direct us otherwise, we're gonna say, okay, one more time. You say we can redo this website and you're not gonna charge us extra? We'll stick it out another year. Because I really don't know if my request would even rise to the top, especially after DeToli yesterday. Commissioner?
If you did a redesign, would you be committed to any time thereafter?
No.
Okay.
Our contract at this point is year to year. But we are one of the legacy, we're a legacy client, which means when we signed on, it all sounded great to do a redesign every 4 years. But technology, and visual and graphic arts, every 4 years is too long. To change that contract would cost us a significant amount of money to do every 3. But so they're going to, Olive Branch, we'll go ahead and let you do this because we really don't want to see you leave. And we really feel like with what else, the other things that are on the plate right now, with 150th and some of the other new platforms and programs we're offering, it's worth giving it a shot. Now, unless otherwise directed by the board. But again, I watched DeToli yesterday. I'm not getting in front of him and his firefighters or however the board makes those decisions, but to change vendors would easily be 50, 60 grand and a year-long process to redo. So that's what I'm offering and suggesting today, again, with the direction from the Communications Committee, which is Mayor Bales, Commissioner Kidwell, and Commissioner Phillips. So the podcast, we launched well. Then we did 2. Fox knocked it out of the park. and then we kind of went silent for a few months. Thanks to HPD for sharing their equipment, but it was a challenge to get it back, to get it back in a routine. However, again, at the direction of the Communications Committee, I was able to purchase one piece of equipment. That means I don't have to borrow the MacBook from HPD. I don't have to borrow some of the other stuff from HPD, but I can still share in their microphones and the other equipment that we don't need to double buy. But it's all in one unit. And thanks to Larry for sharing the storage room, Public Works is gonna be moving a table. We're gonna be able to create a little space where it can be set up all the time in a locked room. And so people we won't have to be taking it down every time someone uses shared space. And I believe that we will be able to get back on monthly, if not more frequent podcasts by having it set up and out of the way and only having to share partial equipment. Because I won't have to be learning GarageBand and MacBook. So I think we're headed in the right direction, but if we're gonna do the podcast, it needs to be regularly scheduled, and it hasn't been. So I feel like that's where it has not, it's still on this list. And, you know, just mentioning NCDOT projects makes me somewhat twitch, but we know that NCDOT doesn't always communicate in a timely fashion with some of our local residents, but even businesses. So I'm gonna step out there and say, I think it's worth an effort to take the contacts that we have and go back out to the businesses and make sure we have accurate contact information for local businesses along 21, along 73, so that as we find out more information, we can share it with the people that are directly affected. They do a good job on some projects, and sometimes we know that they're gonna do something several days in advance. But there have been a couple of times where, of course, construction, specifically on 21, we're gonna have to do this tonight. And me trying to get in touch with some of the people, the information was not as accurate, especially with the dealerships. People had left, turnover, and every time I would send something, I would get back an email asking me what type of Toyota or Ford or Honda I wanted to buy. So it was difficult trying to reach them in a quick and timely fashion. So I really feel like we need to create that the best that we can and communicate as quickly as we can just to augment what DOT is doing, or hopefully doing. So when I move down to the bottom part, I want to explain. So obviously everybody that's going to stand before you would say, gosh, we wish we had more space, more money, more people. What I'm saying is functional space. Being able to not set something up and take it down, set it up and take it down, and go into a space that is really just a storage closet. I'm good with the storage closet at this time for a podcast because that equipment doesn't need to be open. It doesn't need to be used by a lot of people, but that's functional to me. Now, it'll be nice when the presentation about the town hall comes to fruition and there's obviously designed functional space, but right now functional space is being able to create what we have. Thank you to Jackie and to Anthony. They share their storage cabinets with me. So we put things in wherever we can put them, but to me, functional space is just being creative in how we use it. Additional staff resources. I'm not standing before you and saying I need 16 full-time people, and I'm not even saying, gosh, I would love to have one. Now, if you choose to give me one, that's great. But I'm not asking for one, but what I've tried to do is use interns. Staff resources doesn't necessarily have to be a paid staff person. In the summer, we used an intern from Western Carolina. This spring, I'm in the process of getting someone, a Bonner Scholar from Davidson College, and we've already had interest from a student from Appalachian for the summer. These are students that need real-life, hands-on learning experiences in communications. They need class credit. The town can provide that. So when I say additional staff resources, I am trying my best to create and to gather those types of resources without having any type of an increase coming to you. Funding resources, I'll just say anything is great. Anything is great. I would not turn anything down. But some of the funding resources you will see in the, Bobby and I are very comfortable with our public input contract. We love that program. We went in on the bottom level. Second tier is about $9,000 more. So if that is part of the final budget, we would be able to add some components to that and get rid of some other contracts, because everything would be in one platform. So I'm not standing before you asking for additional anything, just some creative ways to make it work. And with that, I'm going to leave you with that really happy closet where everything's in order and everything has its place, and we're gonna get there. We've made huge strides in 1 year. I'm really confident that next year my mudroom might not be a mudroom anymore. So, any questions?
So you need to stop saying and putting yourself like at another place, because communications is something the town should have been doing for the last 5 to 10 years and they haven't. So in your defense, you have been playing catch up, and the staff who was doing what they could were just trying what they could on top of their real jobs here. And I'm not saying this because I'm on the communications committee, but I've learned, because when I went into it, I was like, oh, whatever, it's Facebook, whatever. But now I get it. And what you really are, you guys, the communications are really like a first line of defense and the first line of communication people in this community interact with and don't even know it. Like I know I send you edits all the time to the website because I'm finding links from like 2012 that are just out there in dead space for things that don't exist anymore. And if somebody's looking to move to Huntersville to work or to have a home and you go to a janky website, that kind of sets a tone. So I really hope that you guys will be more mindful, and like it's not just social media and fun. Like they really are communicating in a professional manner that helps the town out. So please stop saying you don't deserve it or need it, because you really do.
I would gladly take it. I'm not going to stand in front of fire or PD, but yes, gladly take it. And just for example, I'm meeting next week with Charlotte Mecklenburg Emergency Management to discuss the inerrant and inadvertent siren last week. We didn't know what was going on. Our community wanted us to tell them what was going on, and we could not.
Okay.
And so we're meeting with emergency management, myself, the PIO from Cornelius and Davidson. We said this is not acceptable to us. The email, I made sure Bobby didn't think my tone was too strong. It's not acceptable when our residents are calling here and we can't answer their questions. And we also are trying to figure out what we're supposed to be communicating. So they have agreed, and we're meeting with them in a week and a half down in Charlotte to say, what can we do? Hopefully this never happens again. But this process that you have is not working, and we're responsible for communicating with our communities. You've got to communicate with us a lot quicker than you did.
Well, and I'll say with that, my phone was blowing up and I wasn't in Huntersville, so I didn't know what was going on. I called Anthony. First thing he said, Kim's on it. And I was like, okay, I'm good.
It took a lot of calls and emails and texts, though, there's one thing to say, here's what we think it is. It's another thing, we were basically saying, but you have to make a statement so we can share it. Because I don't want to be the one that says, oh, don't worry, oops, and it not be an oops. That's not an acceptable reaction time. So we really are going to try to do that, but sometimes we just have to step up and push a little bit too, because we're responsible for communicating. I know a lot of you got calls and texts and emails, and none of us, all we could say is, well, we hear it could be this. That's not an acceptable communication to our community. We needed to know what was happening. We needed to see it in writing before we could share. We took a lot of heat for that. People said we should have known.
How?
There was a lot of, oh my gosh, that went into last week's oops button.
Commissioner Barty.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Strickland, for all you do. Appreciate your communication efforts. How successful have you been in trying to link up with a lot of the HOA websites Facebook pages, because in Lattice Springs, we have our own web page, and I don't see our website on our web page. Is there some sort of way you could do that?
We can send things out, as far as, like in communications, if we're doing some work over that way, we can send emails to whoever the contact is, and it might be the management company, it might be an HOA president, that's
Right.
the database. We send it, it's up to them to attach it.
Connect.
Now, the thing that I think most people think is that we can see private Facebook groups and Nextdoor groups, and we cannot. We don't know what the chatter is unless you share it. And even with that, I can't insert the town in that conversation. But if we put something out and anybody comments on it, then we have a direct communication with them. But if LATA has a concern in the community and it's on your Nextdoor group,
Right.
we're not seeing any of that.
Okay.
And we can't see any of that, but if we are told, we can certainly share. There was a situation where we were made aware through screenshots of a conversation that was happening within a Nextdoor group. I sent an email to the contact we had for that HOA and said, would you mind sharing this? Please, here's the correct information. Now, I don't know if it ever got shared because I can't see. Those are private groups and the town can't, believe it or not, the Big Brother doesn't reach into that. But anything that we know about, we'll gladly communicate with, but it's up to the HOAs to accept our information.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kovacs.
Out of curiosity, you said if you go up to the next level for the public input, you could cancel some other contracts?
Yes.
Which,
We could, right now, we have, I think, there's over 30 different email lists in our constant contact group. Now, they're very specific because planning has needs for certain things. There's the one that I use for town board agendas. There's over 400 people that say they want the town board agenda. So every time it's published, I send them an email. So we have those pieces in there. The next level of public input would allow us to bring those contacts into that portal, and we could send things out through that. So it would help tie some things together. Again, still the mudroom philosophy is it's really hard for something that was created 10 years ago to even know the accuracy of some of those mailing lists, but we don't want to just stop using them or drop them or start afresh. So if we could pull them in and share them, we could be able to get some. The analytics that I can get on the public input is phenomenal. Just where not, I don't know where you live, for anybody listening. We don't know where you live, but we can tell in the PD survey, we could tell how many people were in this quadrant and how many people were on the west side based on the URLs. Just, we don't have names or addresses or anything like that, but the system can give us some analytics that lets us know if we're trying, what kind of reach are we having? What kind of feedback are we receiving? Is it coming from only this area? So it would be nice to have a more data-driven, integrated approach. So I'm not saying that we would drop constant contact right away, but there are features where we could send out messages, and we don't even know what they all are, but some, like Asheville uses it, City of Charlotte is starting to use it, Raleigh, some of the bigger communities are using it. I believe Cartpo is going to be using it. So a lot of the agencies that we work with are moving to that platform as well, so it would be nice if we could incorporate some of that. So just alone, that would be some things that we could add that right now we don't have the capacity to do through that platform.
I'd also like to echo what Commissioner Kidwell said. I really love being able to tell people, when people ask me a question that I don't know off the top of my head, rather than, is this trash day or recycling week? You know, I did it to my husband, I think yesterday or the day before. I was like, go to the app. He's like, sure, okay.
For those of you
Much
that
appreciated.
don't know, that Waste Connections component of the app is heavily used, and that's what we said. I've had the calls, hey, why didn't, we had some trash that dumped on our street this week, who do we call? And I screenshotted the part of the app where all you gotta do is pull it up and touch it and it calls them, if you want to call them, or you get the notification. So we'll continue to add. Again, we stepped into the app world because I've never created an app before, honestly. So it was like, let's start small. I want to make sure we do it right. And I feel pretty exciting when I can get in there and add things. So we will continue to add based on feedback, but I really think it has provided our residents a simpler way to get some information that's day-to-day. And we want to, continue to hear, so.
It takes away some of the frustrations of our website,
Yes.
alleviates some of that.
Right, right.
It does. Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes, first, I'd like to recognize Mayor Anarella, former Mayor Anarella over there, sitting in the corner hiding. But don't rush off just yet. Second of all, back in 2015, I believe it was your first term, Commissioner Boone, I think it was your first term as well. We killed, first meeting, we stopped the town of Huntersville from having a PIO. I'll say in 2019, sitting back, from the galley, I recognized that was probably a mistake. And I would like to commend the board that brought you on and hired you we need you. We need this position. And I just want to say thank you to them. Thank you to you, because as we continue to grow, as we expand, you've brought value. You're a value-added employee, and I want you to know that. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well said. Any other questions? You're just doing a fabulous job. Just remind me, what month did you start? Was it
September
September
2021.
21? That's what I thought.
Oh, I expected more.
You expected more. I'm just amazed at, just since that time, how far we've come, and then the assessment of where we need to go, next steps. I will also say in our January community engagement event at Lowe's Food was fabulous. We're having the 150th committee there. Now, I'll share this. The very next day, I was in another grocery store across the street shopping, and the store manager stopped me and goes, "I saw the pictures." And I said, "I've been here 3 times this week doing my own personal shopping." I said, "But we're going to be out and about all across the community for the next 9 months. Our goal is to be everywhere and to be where people are in our community." And he gave some suggestions on another location for us. And I said, "Absolutely, I'll pass that along and we'll see if we can make that work." So my point of all of that is to say, people were watching, so not only did we give 96 pieces of cake out, but there is an added element of excitement around the fact that we're intentionally going to our community, and we're not simply asking our community to come into this room. And to me, that is the highest compliment. So I believe we truly are on the right track. So thank you for all of that work.
Thank you. I look forward to all the invitations for people inviting us to join them at their parties.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, now engineering.
Steve and Kevin are gonna have, that's a hard act to follow. Come on up.
Mayor, while they're getting
Yes.
ready, I was gonna say, you're gonna hear a lot of the road projects they're talking about. I think Jackie sent out CIP. We're gonna talk about the CIP Friday, or when, no, not Friday, geez, early in the week. She sent out the CIP, you're gonna hear them talk a lot about that. But there are no new road projects on that CIP list. These are road projects that you've probably seen many times before. Previous mayors and previous boards, it takes a long time to get through these projects. So Stephen may click a little faster, but if you need him to slow down, because, there are a lot of pictures and things like that you have probably seen at least 2 or 3 times. You get the monthly update that we send you on a spreadsheet, so just stop us. But I just want to let you know, there are no new road projects on the CIP list. Now, prices have gone up, but there are no new projects. There may be talk of a project that I'll just mention now, like a I'm gonna just say the extension in Burkdale, with or without a Burkdale improvement, you know, as they continue, you know, their improvements, whether that's something the board decides they wanna add, you know, to some future list, not saying we're gonna fund it today or 10 years from now, but that project was on the list, I think when I first got here, then it was pulled off. I just say that there are no new projects on this list, from staff, right, David?
Four.
Well, it takes a long time to get projects going, so I know the mantra for many, many years has been get them shovel ready so that when we can pull that trigger and make that work, that we have the capability of doing that, and it takes a long, long time to get them prepared, so you've been diligent. So let's hear what you've got.
Working on it, and as Anthony said, we're continuing to work to deliver what we have. So in 2022, the calendar year, completed several projects. Several of those are sidewalk projects, some street resurfacing, and then I'd say just about complete is the advance at Bud Henderson intersection. I think there's maybe a couple of minor punch list items to complete. Where are those projects? If you don't know by the name of it, most of those projects are on the west side of town, with the exception of street resurfacing. Street resurfacing is all over town. Questions on that? Kevin can answer that, but it was about 6.1 miles of street resurfacing in various communities throughout the town in 2022. As Anthony mentioned, there's a lot of projects that are underway. They take a long time to do. Between 25 and 30 active projects right now we're working on, and there's a list of them here. As Anthony mentioned, we send out an update every month of what the status is of those projects in construction or in development. It's grown to a page and a half, and then on the bottom of that monthly list, as you know, there's the NCDOT projects as well. So the top half of the list is the town-led projects. The bottom half is the NCDOT led projects. Where are all those projects? We do have a little snapshot map here to show where they all are. They're all over the place in all different stages. Something that also is coming up is resurfacing again. Resurfacing streets, something that's done each year. For 2023, looks like about 6.4 miles. That's a little less than 3% of the total mileage. It's about 225 miles of streets. So if you do the math, 6.4 over about 225, less than 3%. Throwing that out now to cue up Kevin for later.
And Stephen, to be clear, those are only town roads?
Yes.
225 miles of town roads.
It's a little less than that, 224 and change, but about 225 miles of town-maintained streets. I think there's over 100 miles of state roads in town too, but it's not us. Although we do maintain sidewalk on state roads, so throw that in your queue for later too. Future CIP projects, Anthony mentioned, no new ones added to the list. These are ones that are already on the list. If you want us to start more, Anthony said it's not on the list, but these are ones that are already in the CIP as a future year. I'll hold my staff asked depending on how you answer this question for later on. So where are those future projects? Just like all the existing ones, they're spread out through town. On the west side, north, south, it's all over the place. I have a picture of where those future projects ones are if you want to go to that level of detail. If you don't, and you say, well, no, we're not going to start anything, we're going to wait, I can skip through about 10 slides.
Mayor?
Yes, please.
Go back to the last slide just real quick, I just want to comment. I think this is important, if later on when we get to talking about bond projects, when you talk about bond project, road project, you want something for everybody. And if you look at this map, where the purple or whatever color that is first, there are projects all over town, east, west, north, south, and orange, east, west, north, south. So when we talk about bond projects later on, all of these projects, you know, it may not be every one of them, but there are projects all over town that would be in that mix. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, and also a small detail, Anthony pointed out the two colored boxes, the blue highlighted roads, that's the DOT projects. It's all on one map. So unless there's questions, I'll run through these real quick. Say 115, Accord 73, this is a project, we actually applied to CRTPO when we're awarded funding, future funding. So we got awarded, haven't started on it yet. The funding's still a couple years out from being able to get, so we haven't started on that yet. Old Brooks Road, a little project there between Central and 115. Realigning Huntersville Concord Road between Walters and First. Improving Walter Street between Huntersville, Concord, and Third, south of the Pavilion Village development. So they're gonna build part of that. Move on to the north of 4th Street. Church Street alignment, that's realigning Church Street over to Walter Street. As part of the Main Street project, there'll be a median going on Huntersville, Concord that won't be able to go across Church Street. So this project will realign that so that then you can. Hambright at Mount Holly, Huntersville. This is a project that's been on there for a little bit. There are currently 3 different developers who have committed improvements at this intersection right now. There's likely another one with another development that's proposed there just to the north. I believe that's in the Town 1 development. And then also the Cats Park and Ride facility is here too. So there's a lot of activity at this intersection. Beatty's Ford at Neck Road. Everybody knows where that is. Beatty's Ford Road at Cashin Road, adding some turn lanes in that location. Beatty's Ford at Stevens Road. These are all 2-lane roads, don't have any turn lanes at this time. And then some that were mentioned yesterday, the next 3 here, Burkdale Commons extension to Oliver Hager. I would assume that's around where the possible fire station would be located. Extending Irvin Cook to then make that connection to the south, because there is a gap between the existing Oliver Hager, where the development's going to build the north end, the last project, and then this one. And then to the south, Irvin Cook upgrade. There was a subdivision that was approved in this area, so they may be doing some of this work here over the next few years. So that project may be lessened. Any questions on the road projects, possible ones? Yes, sir?
Stephen, the extension, Hager to Cook and the Cook upgrade, do we have a potential cost on that?
We do have some cost numbers. I believe they have those later in the CIP.
Yeah, those 3 sections are in the CIP later. I want to say they're about 25 million. I'll just say 8 million apiece.
7-8 million apiece for each one of those last 3.
But as Stephen said, there are some private development on at least 2 of those sections that may take away some of that cost, so they may be, for us, if we were to do them, we would push them out further in future years, we'll see. Or we may say, don't fund them yet.
Commissioner Munger?
We haven't started land acquisition on any of these things that you just showed, have we?
Yes, there's no dollars associated with them. We haven't done any work on those yet.
Not on the future projects that are out there in the future years. But we will talk about that later.
So these projects would be part of the referendum,
Yes,
potentially?
yes, there are, when we talk about later on, there are a few projects. So when we talk about potential funding of all the projects, everything in the CIP from 24 to 28 is funded, everything. And then almost all of, if I recall, almost all of the future projects, except for 4-ish or 5, I can't remember exactly how many. So we are proposing to fund everything in the CIP plus some in the future years, because you got to remember, we do bonds every 10 years or so.
yeah.
You know, it appears that's what we've been doing.
Jack?
One of the projects was improving Huntersville Concord, the curve, which was in there. If you look at the downtown plan, it has a very different treatment, kind of like a roundabout. So this is an example of where we're going to have to try to determine you know, what are we trying to do here? So I just wanted to get that out there that, you know, it's a project that will need some discussion.
Okay.
And we got, on those type projects, that we're nowhere near funding, we haven't designed anything, we can flip on a dime on that if that's a direction we want to go. So that's be a board decision.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Out of curiosity, knowing that these are future projects, are we paying attention to the properties that go up for sale that are in these areas and keeping note of that to potentially move up the projects if those situations occur?
I'll say we try, as we become aware of property that may be for sale. Sometimes that's just, we check the websites to see, you know, Zillow or Realtor or whatever, to see what's for sale. But sometimes when we find out about it, it's, you know, if it's been a private transaction, we have no idea. But the ones that are out there, may have been out there for a little bit, we try to look at. Bobby also takes a look at ones that may be in foreclosure or other situations like that. Once we see where there is some overlap, it's just hard to know, you know, if we haven't started a project, it's hard to know, okay, what parcels do we need? Do we need that whole one? Do we just need part of it? Do we spend a bunch of money to buy it? There's a lot of unknowns when it's way out in the future.
That just came to mind when thinking about the Huntersville Concord curve thing, because I know Commissioner Munger had brought that up a few times, so I was just asking.
Well, and I would say we're all on the same team. If you see
Yes.
a piece of property or find out a piece of property is going on the market, let staff know so that they can go in and evaluate and see if it's necessary.
Like, we looked at the house in the curve one time and took a run at it, and I run at it, and what they wanted was not quite matched up, and it was so far out, so we said, we'll hold off. And another example was, you know, down near Dalewood and that area, we had a piece of property there that was in foreclosure that seemed to, we're gonna affect it. It was a small sliver, so, you know, that's something that we will look at to try to get ahead of. But a lot of times it's, people want to sell their entire property, and if we need 10 feet, we may not buy the whole property. So those are things we look at.
Anything else at this point? All right, Stephen.
And there'll be a lot of discussion on the projects, you know, as part of the CIP, as far as costs and dollars and when. I'll say one thing to keep in mind on the road projects, those are not yet fully funded, so we've got to figure out how to pay for the ones even we've already started. So for possible sidewalk projects, work with the manager's office to come up with a list of potential locations for sidewalk projects. We currently have 19. We're working on a handful of those right now. Most of these are typically smaller, you know, sidewalk connection projects. There's sidewalk maybe a few hundred feet down the road, and we're trying to make a little connection to give more people access to sidewalk.
So what I would say also to add to what Stephen said here is, the last map you just saw has been updated because we've pulled off projects that we've completed and, you know, painted in the sidewalks. So there's 4 or 5 that's been completed. Obviously, the ones up by Outback Steakhouse are no longer highlighted or doesn't have a yellow box by it. So we're constantly updating this map. The other thing I'd say we've done different too is, if you recall, I'm gonna say a month or 2 ago, maybe the Greenway Bikes and Trail Committee had, you know, sort of a list too. You know, we want to all be on the same page. So what we've done to work with MJ and Tracy and their team is, you know, take that list too and sort of combine it. And have a list that, instead of having 1,000 different, you know, numbers out there, we've got lots of sidewalks we'll be doing. We looked at how do we make connections? You know, where's there a gap missing? How do we connect to schools? How do we connect to parks? How do we connect to shopping center? All of the above. And, you know, as you'll see in a minute, we have to design those too. There are not a lot of easy pieces of sidewalk left. There's not, you know, flat ground you lay across. There are ditches and valleys, and you need right of way just like a road. So those projects we're working through, and you will continually see this list change and modified, just like road projects on a yearly basis. So, but we have it all in one good place now, and we have Parks and Rec Greenway sidewalk connections all on the same map now, so we're all seeing the same hymn. That's the goal.
Well, and the good news is that they're all over town too. That it's not concentrated into one quadrant. It's spreading it out and it's something for everyone.
And one last slide for me, just an update. Last year, we talked about surveying our current sidewalk to see if it meets ADA requirements. Thank you for the position there for our engineering technician. We've got a person in there, and they're working to finish collecting all this data, just to assess what we have. Then we can figure out what we need to fix it. Don't know what we need to fix because we haven't surveyed everything that we have. We have roughly about 290 miles of sidewalk. That's more than what we have roads. Well, some roads don't have any sidewalk. Some roads have sidewalk on both sides of the street. So for 1 mile of street that has sidewalk on both sides, it's 2 miles of sidewalk. So there may be more. And as I mentioned earlier, we also maintain all the sidewalk on state roads as well, where those pieces and parts are. So we're hoping to have all that data captured by the middle of this year, and then start that process all over, because things continue to change as new developments get built, and also as conditions in the real world change. A utility company can come and cut a section of sidewalk, or if somebody drives over a section, and it has to be repaired. And that, it's a constant challenge to try to keep up.
In talking about sidewalks, and you just said something that reminded me, people parking on sidewalks. So I know you're not supposed to park on a sidewalk.
Correct.
But we do have a lot of folks who will, in neighborhoods with the curved gutter, that will just drive up onto the sidewalk and leave their car sitting there, which ultimately cracks that sidewalk after time. How are we addressing that? How do we communicate to the communities? Please don't park on the sidewalk. How?
That's a great challenge.
Ticket them.
Yeah, we get Kim to push that kind of information out.
But are we ticketing them? Is
We
that?
can, yes.
Yes.
We typically will be polite and ask them to move, but if it's a constant person that does it all the time, I'm sure we would give them a nice little ticket.
I think for sidewalks that are right up against the rolled curb, it's a whole lot easier for folks to just park there than if there's that patch of grass between the curb and the sidewalk. Commissioner Munger.
Kind of following up on that, because I have the similar issue in my neighborhood, Vermillion. It's not about them parking on the sidewalk parallel, it's about them blocking it from their driveway.
Well, there's that too. That's an ADA
Is that the same
issue.
thing?
Technically, they're not supposed to block the sidewalks.
Sorry?
Technically, they're not supposed to block the driveway, you're exactly right. That gets a little sticky when folks pull up in the driveway. We wouldn't normally write a ticket for something like that. We do ask, generally if we go out into a neighborhood, we ask them, please move your car. If we get repeat offenders, that's when we write citations. Or if we have a large problem in a neighborhood, quite often we have, down here close, folks will pull up here at some of our businesses and block it, and we have to go down and ask them to move. We try to be very kind the first time or second time, but if it does come to an issue, we will write citations for that.
Thank you.
Would it be helpful to y'all identify where you get the most calls and we can have signs installed? I mean, I know people who are gonna do dumb things don't read signs, but.
I can tell you in past experience, some of the older neighborhoods, there aren't as wide, the roads aren't as wide, things like that. Stone Hollow was bad at one time because it's so narrow and there's no place to move. You can't park a car and get around. You have to literally drive on the sideway to get around sometimes. So places like that, we have problems. Some of our newer neighborhoods that are much wider and things like that, we don't have those issues. But sitting in the driveway, that is an issue we get.
And that is an issue just based off of not being able to park, let's say, 2 cars, tandem, and they're hanging into the sidewalk. So then that affects the ability for
It's almost like developers are crazy.
anyone with a walker or in a wheelchair, et cetera, to be able to, or a stroller, a mom walking with a stroller, they're having to get into the road
Rob's
and
old
back.
neighborhood, you were speaking it, because when I used to watch Cora, we had to walk in the street with her more than on the sidewalk.
And that happens in almost every neighborhood in Huntersville.
But, you know, I will also say, we do have sidewalks. We have wonderful sidewalks. And it would be nice if people used them, because I pull into some neighborhoods if I've got to go visit citizens, or if I'm driving around looking at, you know, complaints, and I see people walking in the middle of the street when we got 2 sidewalks, well-maintained sidewalks at that, that have been ground down so they're not like this, Kevin. And people are just walking in the middle of the street, ignoring the sidewalks. So it kind of goes both ways. Don't block the sidewalks, but also utilize the sidewalks.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also to say that.
It is.
I think the example you gave was, you know, sidewalk right behind we call it the valley gutter, the roll curb. That's an older standard. I don't know that any newer neighborhoods, but there are some ones that are already out there. And so it's a challenge for some of those existing neighborhoods. Anything to add, Kevin? Okay.
Stephen, before you leave this slide, fair to say, estimated cost to fix, if you put a number up there, it'd be a minimum of 7 figures, and I say a minimum of 7, but that's not something that you would go out and fix overnight either. So it's going to be a period of time.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I think last year, we did a survey on our sidewalk ramps. So the ramps at the intersections, found 2/3 of those, about 2/3 of them were compliant. A third of them were not. And the cost to fix that was, if you decide to do it all at once, was about $2.5 million. If you use that same kind of, okay, assume 2/3 of the sidewalk that we have is good and a third is not, you're probably in the 10 to 15 million to just repair that much sidewalk based on today's cost. So, and it continues to, you know, need repair in the future. It's not a case where it's fixed once and you're done. It continues to need repair and upkeep. Any other questions on that before I turn it over?
And I'll say about this too, something that we've started in the last couple of years is with our resurfacing maps, we address those ramps as we resurface the streets. So some of these ramps that were identified as non-compliant are being repaired as we resurface the streets as well. So it's tied into our resurfacing package.
Commissioner Boone?
What happened to the 3-man sidewalk team that we funded for last year? What happened to those folks?
I'll get to that in my slides.
Oh, it's gonna be fixed next week?
So since you guys approved those 4, there were actually 4 positions for a sidewalk crew, we have not been fully staffed. And like I say, I have a slide that speaks to that. So I guess we'll move kind of into the operations and maintenance side of the engineering and public works. There's a statewide allocation for the Powell bill, which you guys know is a huge funding source for our department. I put this map up here to say that it's consistently inconsistent. Powell bill funding. That's the reason for this slide. It could be high, it could be low. We have no control over that. Our piece of the pie, as you can see, last year or this current year, we're about 1.7 million is the town's piece of the statewide allocation. You can see that it's got gradual growth. It goes up and down. We remain flat. This past year, kind of pretty flat. That grows, of course, with our population and with our street mileage. So that's 1.7. We go through this exercise all the time. I'm not, cut the cost to patch and resurface a mile of street, you're looking at about $240,000 per mile. So with that said, you continue the math. We got, as Stephen mentioned, we got about 224 miles at 240. That's almost 54 million. If I went out today and resurfaced every single mile of our street. Let's say we spent 80% of that. I try to do about 1.5 million in resurfacing every year. That equates to about 6 to 6.5 miles. You'll see that every one of our streets would be resurfaced every 39 years, just using Powell bill funds. Again, I say this to say so that one day when I'm asking for general fund money, to maintain our streets. I'm not this year. But one year, I'm gonna be up here and I'm gonna have to say that we're gonna need general fund money to maintain streets. And I don't want it to be a surprise to you guys. So I say that. 39 years, what we're seeing is our pavements are lasting about 20. So I don't think your citizens are gonna live with 39-year-old streets. Fleet services, again, we've talked about this for several years. I think this is the year. I think this is the year that I'm gonna ask for 2 positions. The town owns and maintains about 200 vehicles. Of course, that grows every year. Those are tagged vehicles. And then, of course, with the Parks and Rec Department and our department, lots of tractors and skid loaders and all that kind of stuff that we need to maintain. Small engines, weed eaters, blowers, lawn mowers, those type of things. Currently, these numbers that we're talking about here in labor for vehicles, that includes the police department and the Parks and Rec. That was a town-wide several years ago, or about a year and a half ago, we started tracking the labor separately in our vehicle maintenance. That only accounts for vehicles, though. That doesn't account for all the skid loaders and bulldozers and lawn mowers. That's just for tagged vehicles. You're currently outsourcing about $110,000 per year in labor alone, and then about another $160,000 in parts. So what we propose to do is perform maintenance in-house, bring that as a function of the Public Works. It'll be tires, batteries, oil changes, minor repairs, replacing parts, light bulbs, windshield wipers, that type thing. Of course, any major specialized repairs, we would still have to outsource. So if Barry's pursuit vehicle drops a transmission, we're probably not gonna do that in our shop. That'll probably still have to go to the Dodge store or wherever. Of course, the pros of this is, we can reduce employee down, yes, sir.
Commissioner Kidwell had a
I'm gonna
question.
wait till my.
Oh, you're gonna wait? All right, continue.
Pros of this is, we can reduce employee downtime. We can keep, pool cars at our shop. Now I think, it takes a couple people to take a vehicle to a shop and come back, and all the coordination. There's a security element of the vehicles. They'll be in our secured lot. You don't necessarily have to strip all your personal stuff out of your car to take it to the shop. Scheduling, we'll have somebody that'll be tracking when it's time. Let the driver of that vehicle know, hey, it's time for your car to be serviced with, overall coordination. We'll work directly with the police fleet person that, in that coordination. We'll have great purchasing power. We can purchase parts in bulk. We don't have to pay a markup on the parts. If you're spending $160,000 in parts, every shop is probably charging you 10% markup on those parts. So that, there's a significant savings in parts as well. You'll have somebody, one person in the town, one or two people, a team, that's looking at every vehicle, I guess, consistently. So instead of Michael making decisions on his, solely making decisions on his vehicles, and Steve and I making decisions solely on our vehicles, and you'll have somebody that's coordinating that effort. So I think that'll be streamlined. And then, of course, we will be able to monitor that we're doing the proper maintenance on the vehicles instead of relying on an outside shop. Cons, I have it listed as cons. We estimate about $150,000 for a full startup. I think we can get started without spending all of that money, but I think over time, and that's a little bit of modification to our existing shop. Maybe we have one lift, but maybe putting in another lift, and then tools and startup costs. And then I'm proposing that we add 2 positions, one kind of being a shop foreman and then a mechanic.
And you're saying 150,000 to outfit the shop?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that you weren't saying 150,000 to outfit the shop plus,
No. That's 150,000 to fully outfit the shop, and
And
in
then-
addition to that would
There
be
you go,
2
okay.
employees. That's right.
Commissioner Kidwell?
So Kevin, so you've answered a couple of my questions, because I was gonna ask you, do we have the proper equipment, in terms of lifts? And for 2 new employees, and you're talking about a mechanic, with the array of equipment we have gas and diesel. So
correct.
we're gonna need a pretty qualified mechanic, 2 mechanics, because the foreman's gonna be a mechanic as well.
That's correct, yes, absolutely.
With this equipment, the 150,000, besides another lift, we're talking tire alignment, all the bells and whistles that we're gonna need to run an auto shop.
That's right.
In a sense. What kind of, when you talk about keeping records and keeping accurate records of maintenance, have you looked at any type of software package that we'd be able to put in the VIN numbers and be able to, track that?
Yeah, so we currently use software called PubWorks. We contract, and it does it's a service order request. Oh, excuse me.
You can throw that anywhere.
It's a service order request that we currently track all of our call-ins and our projects, and we track the costs and everything. So we actually just had a meeting with them this week, and they have a vehicle fleet component to that software, and then there's other softwares as well that we can research. But that would be a, wholesale, it keeps all the, you can put a picture of the vehicle and then all the maintenance and all the costs associated, So you can go back and look over time and say, hey, vehicle 547 is costing us, $10,000 last year to maintain. We need to think about surplusing it or, replacing it or whatever.
And do we currently, I'm sure we do, fluid disposal? We already have a contract with
Yes,
like
we have-
Safety Clean or?
Right, yeah, we have a contractor that comes out and empty, we have a container at Public Works and they come pump it out.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Dispose it. Any other questions?
Commissioner Kidwell?
So when we're talking with, I just want to clarify, would 2 employees be enough to also be able to work on the police side of vehicles?
Yes, absolutely.
And you said you're paying 110,000 in labor a year right now?
That's correct.
You know what? Okay.
And that did not include the small engines and tractors?
That's right, yeah. It doesn't include the off-road, what I call the off-road vehicles. That's we only track the labor component separately on tagged vehicles.
Okay.
And make sure you're clear, that doesn't include like major repair, like body work, replacing the engine in that 110.
That's correct, yeah.
So just want to be clear, it's not
That's oil changes and
It's
brakes.
the
oil
yeah.
changes, windshield wipers, brakes, those kind of things in that number. But I just want to make sure everybody understood, bigger ticket item or not.
Oh, did she? Commissioner Kidwell?
I was just gonna comment, it's a practicality thing. Last year I was doing a ride-along with an officer who was running late because another officer had to take them to go get their car, and the place that the car was at had closed early, and they didn't communicate it. So that just tied up somebody in an hour, 2 hours when they should be doing their job. So I think it only makes sense to make it more fluid within the house.
Kevin and Jackie, do we have any type of data for a salary for mechanics? And at what level are we looking, like mechanic level 2, 3?
There's a mechanic position in the league salary survey.
Yeah. All right. What is that?
I think around, for like a lead mechanic, I think you're looking probably around 60 to 70. And then I think, kind of a helper mechanic, you can probably get for 45, 50.
I think that's low, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm gonna revisit
We're
that.
gonna, I'm sure it's gonna be so like the Public Works employees, we're gonna make a run at it, but,
Yeah.
we may, same thing, private sector, we'll see.
I do the research first.
Sure,
Before you come asking the board, because the last thing we want is for the board to say, yes, go do this, and then we not be able to accomplish it.
Well, with mechanics, you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
And
Commissioner,
the private sector, I think that for a mechanic, I'm not, part of the lure, I think, would be our benefit package.
possibly is. Commissioner Boone?
Yeah, I've got a question for Major Graham. Major, is this program going to help you guys out? I think walk me through you taking your car to Public Works for a oil change.
I think this would be a big asset to us. Like Kevin said, and even Commissioner Phillips, when we used to be able to pull into some of our instant oil changes, sit there for 30, 40 minutes and get it down. Now we're to the point that we have to schedule our preventive maintenance for oil changes, things like that. So you may have to get it in there at 10 o'clock. They want it here at 10 o'clock, pick it up 2 hours later, things like that. What we're talking about over here is that we would have our 5 spare cars or 6 spare cars sitting over there. Officer pulls in for preventive maintenance, hands the keys, takes his computer and bag out, sits another car, goes back on the road. He's out of service for 15 minutes doing that. They call him up, hey, your car's ready, come back, 15 minutes, get everything moved back in, he's back on the road. So it's gonna help us in that aspect as well. Plus, I love the opportunity to have a secure area. It's not left overnight, things like that. And, we're still gonna do our major problems at our local dealerships, but oil changes, windshield wipers, the more important thing is they're gonna be able to check the car when we're in there, look and say, hey, look, your control arms are going out, or this is going out, and we've got preventive maintenance that we're not actually getting.
Well, and to clarify the situation I was part of, it was like an oil change, like it was something real basic, and the whole day just got thrown. And it was like a skeleton crew, and and then another ride along that I was on, another officer was not in their current car because it was at the shop because they couldn't get to it that day. So I haven't done that many ride-alongs, but if that's happened twice in just general conversation, that is a problem.
And it would also give us allow that the officer works Monday, Tuesday, and he or she goes home, they can drop the car off over there, while they're out, they come back in, and it's already done and back on the road. We don't have to do that back.
Could they leave their personal car there on our property?
Sure, we have to do it, especially after hours.
Okay. And if you take your cruiser into a let's say a Ford or Chevy place, you got to unload everything in that car before they take it to the back?
We do. We're gonna unload our shotgun and rifle and things like that anyway, but they take all the personal car stuff out, like in the back and things like that, where over here, they just need enough to answer a call while they're gone and come back. So it's a lot easier to do that.
Commissioner
It's
Boone?
almost a no-brainer.
I think it's a no-brainer too, because I was gonna say logistically speaking, if it's our employees and say at the station there's something wrong with the car, one of our mechanics can come look at it real fast, as opposed to trying to outsource and figure it out. So logistically, I think it makes a lot of sense. Mr. Roberts?
And I think it would be a little bit easier. You gotta remember, it's just, I can do everything that got quoted up there, oil change, tire rotation. I've done that myself. I'm not a mechanic. So I think it's not like we're gonna be trying to get the person who can change the engine or, all that. It has to be majorly certified. So I think we have a little more success of that. And then also, North Mech has a program. That may be an opportunity that we could, piggyback with North Mech, be a great opportunity maybe for some of those young men and women to, have an opportunity to come work too.
Or CPCC at the Maracus campus, where they've got that diesel engine program, so
So
that's
it could be a good opportunity to partnership with those organizations.
All right, any questions about that? All right, thank y'all. Solid waste. It's our time here.
Oh, gosh, you don't have time for this one.
The manager's office and I have spoken with most of you about our current solid waste situation. As you know, regardless of which direction we go, we're looking at probably a $600,000 increase for FY24. Of course, this in large part is based on we're growing homes too, so it's not just a rate, but the rate is growing as well as the number of homes we service, which today is about 21,500 residential household pickups. As you know, the current contract expires this June, and I believe we're ready to come to you with a proposal to contract with a new vendor. Like I say, we've had many discussions about this, and Anthony and Jackie, please chime in if you guys want to.
Jackie didn't want to fight me for the mic, so So as Kevin said, we are at the stage where we've got to decide whether to extend the contract. I think we've had some conversations. We're at a point where it's gonna be impossible to bid, you know, we've kind of put in a spot where it's gonna be impossible to bid this out. So we have actually spoken to several vendors, to see what they had to offer. What I think what Kevin would tell you is, we would recommend, I know it's tough, because you could, there's a couple options. You could try to extend one more year with the current vendor. By extending that one more year is gonna be, the difference is gonna be whether, if we extended one more year with the vendor or went with a new vendor, we'd probably save roughly $300,000 in the first year alone. And Kevin and Jackie, tell me if I'm going astray. That's one reason we would say go with a new vendor is, you know, we would enter into a contract, no matter whether you bid it out. So let's say you want to go for RFP and you want to bid it out. It comes down to the end of the day, you're going to have a contract with the vendor. Contract's going to be a contract. We're going to work through a contract either way. It really then just comes down to price. Because we're going to have a contract, they're going to pretty much say the same thing. We have to do that, the board has to approve. So it really comes down to price after that. So when we're looking at price and we're looking at all these other towns out there, we know what they're paying, and we know that one of the vendors that we're looking at are all around us, so that it's attractive for them to try to get in the door as cheap as possible. So we would recommend to you to move towards a new vendor and get a contract to come back to the board for approval. We don't have a contract, we've got to work through that, but that's what we would recommend, just based on the first, versus extending it versus moving to a new one, we would save roughly $300,000 in the first year alone. And what I would say is with those savings is, and with the new contract that we tighten up, is that we would probably look to take some of that savings just in the first year and go out there and get a stash of new cans that we can have set aside to solve some of the problems with replacement. It's like everything else, you know, it's back orders, et cetera. So that's probably what we would recommend if we move in that direction. I know that's very high level what we're talking about. Jackie and Kevin may have more comments, but if you say, Anthony, absolutely not, we want to bid it, then we're gonna say, well, we need to probably extend this by another year, which is gonna, like I say, at least $300,000. And then we'll be right back here next year. We'll get bids in, and whatever the bids are, there'll probably only be 2 or maybe 3 companies. It's gonna be the 2 companies we're talking about now. Maybe it'll be a Waste Connection, maybe a Waste Pro, maybe Republic, maybe Waste Management. Most of those, they got out of residential. Those would probably be 4, most likely 2 or 3, because everything around us is Waste Pro or Waste Connection.
May I add, because this might help answer some questions, and let's not be naive about this. The proposed new vendor suggests that they would service us with new trucks. Serving us with new trucks would commit them to either a lease or the purchase of a new truck with an estimated useful life of 7 years. If we switch, they want a 7-year contract.
Commissioner
I
Flynn.
was gonna ask, how many households are we currently serving?
21.5.
About 21.5, plus or minus.
So that's a big cost to pass on to that few of people. I will look at the new contract right now if you want me to. I'm good. I don't even need to know more at that point.
21.5, Kevin, and you're adding at the rate of approximately how many a month?
It's about 60 to 65.
Commissioner Kidwell.
When you say $300,000 savings, you're saying $300,000 less than what
Yeah. So
the current vendor is wanting to go up $600K. The potential new vendor is only $300,000 more than what we're currently paying.
So
No, so.
Explain that.
Yeah, so the new vendor, if you took a current snapshot of what we're paying
Yes.
at our current residential units, it gets confusing when you add in the households. So when I say $600,000 increase, the new, keeping it flatlined with what the current household units we have today, we would be saving, it's about 80, right around $90,000 just in fee savings. The new proposal does not have the fuel adjustment in it that our current contract has. And we've tried to negotiate with our current contractor a better fuel adjustment calculator, but they are basing diesel fuel on $3.50 per gallon. And at that, if diesel fuel currently stays flat where it's at now, $4.50 or so, then that's another almost $200,000 a year we're paying in fuel adjustment.
So to make it simple, not that these are the numbers, but let's just assume we were paying, if we did an extension for next year, and we were gonna pay $20 per unit. And let's just say, the new vendor was gonna come in at $19.70. These are not the numbers, so that's 30 cents. It's a little, it's a little more saving that, but let's just say it was 30 cents, just to kind of see how we get out of numbers. So that savings alone, that's a saving, like he said, fee based on 22,000 cans. You can run the math. And then the other big savings is the fuel, because if they're saying anything that goes, if the existing vendor says anything that goes above $3.50, we're already above that, and it's been staying that way on fuel, you're gonna pay an adjustment fee on that. That's where the other, let's just say $200,000 come in. And the new vendor says, well, no, you're not gonna pay anything on anything above $5. So unless fuel gets above $5, you're never gonna pay a fuel adjustment on it. So just based on today's fuel costs and what they're proposing and what the actual unit cost is, that's where the savings come in.
Can we request electric vehicles for truck?
And that's where we come up,
They wouldn't run.
commissioners, with this to 300,000. We know what they're proposing numbers, we know what they're proposing fuel. And just based on today's numbers, that alone would be almost a $300,000 savings, just in that 1 year.
Commissioner Munger?
Sure, we go to the other slide that you just showed. Yeah, so the 120, that's what we currently charge residents for trash. And that would cover 50%, and that FY '24, is that the 600,000 extra or the 300,000 extra?
Well, since this is based on the proposed new numbers.
From the current vendor?
No, from the new. moving
New,
forward.
got it. So for us to break even on trash service, we would have to charge residents $236.
Yeah.
And that's,
And what we're showing here is in previous, where we've been, in the previous year was roughly 52%, is that what you're saying there, Kevin,
That's
that we
right.
covered?
Yeah.
So with potentially a new contract, in the new numbers, at the existing rate, we would cover about 50% of the cost, is that basically what you're saying?
That's correct.
So we're close, we're not covering 52% anymore, we'd be covering 50%.
okay.
Yeah, so to cover 50%, we'll have that broken out. If you wanted to stick right at 50%, then you could decrease it a little bit. If you wanted to, if you were at 132, it'd be 56%, so, you can extrapolate.
Commissioner Kovacs, you had a question?
I wasn't finished if it's
Oh, I
possible.
apologize.
That's right. And I'll let you ask that one. This one I know is a little bit tricky. We own at least 2 out of every 3 trash bin. Where are we on the 3rd?
So the current contract is a little ambiguous on how it was written.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, we have not had those conversations with our current vendor to see how they're gonna handle it. Basically because we haven't let our current vendor know that we've let them know that we're exploring options, because when they came back to price, of course, first thing we did was try to negotiate with them to get them to a better price. So they're ringing our phones off the hook wanting a decision. Contractually, we have to let them know 90 days. So by April 1st, we have to let them know if we're going to renew or if we're going to go with a new vendor. We would like to know by this afternoon, if at all possible. But we haven't had those conversations about how they're going to handle those cans, the ambiguity in the contract.
Would there be an additional expense potentially?
Potentially.
All right.
Commissioner Combs. Following up on him, I was gonna ask how much each trash can costs.
Those rollouts are about $65 to $70 a piece. And if-
I didn't know if it was a math question, because I've been mathing over here.
Oh, dear.
So if we stick with the current people with the $600,000 increase, at 126, you add $28, then we go to 154 to cover 52%. But if you look at the new people's numbers, that's a minor increase to cover, even at 61%, it's 144, it's still less than what we're gonna have to pass on to cover 52%. So it's nice math.
Anyone else?
You want to borrow this?
Yeah.
Any potential direction for staff at this point?
New.
No.
No?
Commissioner Boone?
Well, I think whatever we do, we need to put this out for a bid. I think it's, if we start something like this, we'll just take what we've heard, we've only heard one. There might be 2 or 3 other companies out there that we don't even know what they're gonna offer. So I'm up for either extending the contract, which will decrease the service, the quality of the service will go down. I've seen it.
And raising costs. We'll pay more for less.
Well, and so you want to go ahead and just take something and you think this is the best deal out there?
How many how many vendors are there potentially in our area that service our area?
You said three, right?
I mean, the ones that I'm more, Waste Pro and Waste Connection has this market corner.
Right.
Waste Management and Republic sort of got out of the residential. Republic is starting to get back in some. But I've had experience with Waste Management. I think maybe the town has either had experience with Waste Management or Republic. And if I get to vote when they come back in, we've had bad experiences with those companies. Maybe they're great now. I don't know that they would get back into business. Maybe Republic. We asked Republic to give us a price. They said no. We would have to. Now it's been tight crunch. We would need to wait and bid it out. Most folks want you to bid it out. They don't want to give you a price. But it may be 4, unless there's some mom and pops. You know, me and Mr. Kidwell go in business with a, and start up a business. Every now and then you'll see some of those. But I'm talking people with the financials and the wherewithal. Not many companies can go, unless they're big, can just go out there and get a selection of new trucks right now. We can't even get police cars, so.
Well, and not for a community our size, too.
That part.
That's the bigger piece.
And it's because they have so they're ordering trucks all the time. And they can pull those new trucks that maybe they're looking at a different contract and put over here. That's why a large company is probably gonna be better than mom and pops, startup.
I will say, Waste Pro, who we would recommend to go to the contract with, they have 17 contracts locally. So they have a vast majority, and they've also, they've expressed to us, they've got a strong desire to be here. They've got their resources here. They're building shops here. They've got facilities that are local. And they have a strong desire to take on us. Cornelius and Davison just to the north, which adds comfort to us, actually, because if additional resources were needed, if a truck goes down or whatever, they can pull resources from 17 contracts right around us to help.
I did talk with mayors Washam and Knox about their comfort level. And they both spoke highly of their service. So that, I don't know if that's a value to the board, but I did want to at least reach out, because if they come back to me and said, absolutely not, we can't wait to change, we can't wait to the end of the contract, I would be bringing that to you too. But I thought that there was a level of comfort there at least.
I believe.
Y'all say bid it, it's not gonna hurt our feelings at all.
Right.
We're just looking at all the options available. I would normally say, if we had the chance and opportunity, but I've looked at the prices and all. Kevin and I normally you wouldn't have staff say go out. It's so comfortable for us if we got a good company to stay with them and keep doing it because we're gonna get the calls, you're gonna get the calls, et cetera. Normally, staff would not say, do this because we'd like to stay with who we got, keep going with who we got, et cetera. It's
I
tough.
would say that if the board chooses to go this route and with this recommendation, just making sure that, if they aren't living up to their contractual agreements, that we're holding them accountable.
Absolutely, I agree. And, you know, of course, like I say, we don't currently, we have pricing from them, but we do not currently have a signed contract, obviously. So, we still have the opportunity in that contract to put in the necessary liquidated damages and termination clauses and everything that would protect us in the event that, the services.
I would imagine if they've got trucks that are leaking out on our roads, that's built in, that they have to address that in a timely fashion. They can't just leave streaking down our roads. And
Correct.
that's probably one of the benefits to the newer trucks too.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Kidwell, what are your thoughts?
I've asked some questions. I am a proponent of bidding things out. I know that HFFA contract's coming up. We should bid it out just to make sure we're getting a good deal. But I am concerned with spending money for another year in an attempt to save money that we may not get back. We all come from different backgrounds, so we always pull from our different walks of life. I've got a customer, and they're giving us an opportunity to run a specific job. It's a big job. We're running it. We told them if they want us to continue to run it, we're gonna need a contract, because I'm gonna have to purchase a piece of equipment for it. So I get that. I get that from their aspect. They did their due diligence. They went out to 4 different companies. They said, run it, test, let's test it. Okay, we've chosen you, run another test. If it progresses and they want us to run this for multiple years, they're gonna have to sign a contract with us so we can purchase equipment to handle that. So I'm against what I've said and what I truly believe in on bidding things out. I kind of feel like our feet to the fire on this. Because if we go up from $126, that $600,000 increase, what's that take us to on the coverage? Because we can't absorb all the cost. And just like in any other business, as rates go up, we can't absorb all the costs. So what's that pass through to the resident?
So this estimate that I have here, the 5.2 million, is with a new vendor. That's
So
what.
we're assuming what the new price would be, et cetera.
Well, yeah, I'm saying if we stayed with the current vendor at $600,000, even if we extended another year, they're gonna go up $600,000. What's that take?
That's the $28 you mentioned.
Yeah, that's
Is that the
where,
28?
that's
Okay.
where we pass on $28 a month to cover 52%,
Jackie's running.
just to
And-
have zero.
And on top of that, that
600
includes them keeping the existing trucks, et cetera, and the leakages and all of the issues that
62
we're starting
project.
to see now in our roads.
I took $600,000 divided by 22,000 residents, and I got $27.
And that is annually, not monthly, just for clarification.
Commissioner Partee?
No. I look at it like, when it comes to sanitation, it's like the 2 guarantees in life: death and taxes. And when it comes to waste removal in this resident, or any resident in this country, in the cities, that's a necessity. So I'm a proponent of, I like the bids, but right now, I like the savings. And I like going with, I think I had this conversation with Kevin before. I think, Kevin, you brought this to us before, and I was like, you know, I like sticking with who we have it now, and then possibly bidding out later on. But right now, I'm with like death and taxes. We gotta remove waste from people's homes. And I wanna go with the savings. So if that answered the question, that's where I'm at.
Mr. Roberts?
We'll work towards it then. Still a contract that has to come back for this board. Obviously, Emily's gonna do what she does, and we will bring a contract, back to the board for approval. Could be, may not work, but I'm pretty sure those, the contract will get worked out. We'll bring it back to you ASAP.
I think it's a shame that our existing provider wasn't upfront with us many, many months ago, so that we had that opportunity to explore all options. I think if this is the direction the board's saying go.
Okay, thank y'all. And then for for Anthony and Jackie, for preparation of the budget, would you want to stick with the 126 annual for the solid waste fee? What direction would you like to go there, or just figure that out?
Commissioner Phillips?
I'm gonna be the money spender this year, I guess. 61%, the 144, that frees up 9%. I look at that as that pays for Kevin, for the PD, and for everybody to have a fleet service. And we know fees are gonna go up, and this was something that we had been trying to put off. So I rather do that's not super small, it's $18, but it's an incremental increase instead of next year maybe having, God knows what the shape of the world will be, and we hit them with 50. But this at least gets a paid plan for us to have the fleet services that 3 departments cover. And I think that's a really good idea.
Commissioner Munger?
I've had issues with the amount that we pay in terms of the trash service, how we're supplementing this for a number of years. I mean, the first number that comes to mind when I'm looking at all this, can you, Jackie, give me an idea, like, if I raise it $1, what's that offset? I mean, is it simply put $21,500 for every dollar that we raise?
If we're collecting for 22,000 households, I would say every time you change it $1, it's $22,000.
That's correct.
Okay, so, I mean, for every dollar it goes up, we're reducing our burden by $22,000 essentially. We're currently at, I'm sorry, I'm confused. We're currently at 120 or we're at 126?
We're currently at 126.
126, okay, so I was. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, $5 a month doesn't sound like a giant number.
This is a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So $5 a month is 180 from the 120. And that's the number that makes the most sense to me. It gives you, we're still supplementing it essentially 25%, and the residents are paying 75% of the fee. And I know that scares the heck out of a lot of people, but to be real, I mean, should we be in the business of supplementing trash service, which is essentially what we're doing, or should we be trying to recover as much as possible so that we can get things like the fleet services and stuff like that? And I know you're gonna cut me off, go ahead.
So in theory, I agree with you, but also it's a monopoly because we don't let people choose their service. It's a forced service. So that's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the 25% supplement justifies that, and that seems like a reasonable number. I know I'm going to lose, but 180 is the number that comes to mind.
Option 3.
Yeah, that's.
Option 3 to, and sorry, go ahead, madam.
Oh, I was just gonna continue around the room to let everyone weigh in.
I want to hear option 3.
I would like to.
So option 3, as I said last year, because I know you love this, we let everybody get their own provider. When I lived in Georgia, you had multiple services provided for trash, recycling, and you paid for it. They charge your credit card monthly to come pick up your service. There's your third option. Then it's not the town's burden at all.
But you're also adding havoc to our road infrastructure and adding more
I didn't say it was
heavy
pretty.
vehicles.
I didn't say it was pretty, I just said
Well, no, it's
option.
not, that's
I
not
don't need to
pretty.
hear option three.
Not yet. Commissioner Kovacs, would you please weigh in?
While I, in theory, do understand what you're saying, Commissioner Munger, that's the only response. I do think if we're going with another company with new trucks, potentially new cans for the people that need them, all that, we are gonna provide a higher level of service in theory. So I'm comfortable with the 61%, the 144.
Okay. Commissioner Kidwell? Other than the option three?
And listen, option three is tongue in cheek, guys.
Well, if you and
Uh,
Anthony start your service, then option three
I
could be
mean-
an option.
Cornelius has a landfill up there, right? Not yet?
We make one.
Oh, no, wait, Mooresville does. It's what they put in Lake Norman every year. Listen, we've been going down this path. I've been kind of taking a rough, and I say very rough because I don't want, because Jackie would smack me if I said this is what our tax rate is looking like. But Jackie, if we go to 62%, what is that, to the tax rate, or 61%, about a half cent?
Patty, Kevin, we're generating 2.6 million now in solid waste fee, 2.6 in 23 tax rate, that's 2.6 cents on the tax rate.
So,
And FY '23, Davidson did exactly what you just suggested. They stopped charging the solid waste fee and incorporated that into their tax rate. And in so doing, remember, when you do that, Mecklenburg County distributes sales tax on an ad valorem basis. So that will help them next year in their sales tax distribution because they've increased their tax levy. Now, how much, I don't know.
So-
But that also negatively impacts businesses.
It absolutely does, yes, ma'am.
Which you increase their tax and they're still paying separate for their
Yeah.
garbage disposal.
And that's, for us at the store, it's about $200 a pickup. So if you're starting to tax a business and then we gotta pay that too, I'm gonna throw hands.
well, no, I'm not saying that. And maybe I wasn't clear on that, Jackie. I'm saying if we go to what Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Kovacs has said, at the 61%, the cost to the taxpayers would be in a half cent, would that be about a half a cent increase in the tax rate?
I think it'd be less than that. I'm saying 126, the difference between 126 and 144 is $18. $18 times 22,000 people is 396,000, so call it $400,000.
So
Half
right
cent.
under a half cent. All right, that's all, I just wanted, I was asking.
Commissioner Partee?
Does anyone have an abacus so I can get math numbers?
Yeah, Jackie.
I'm going to go with Commissioner Phillips. She always does the math since I've been here, and I go with her numbers. So I like the 61%.
Commissioner Boone?
Two things. First of all, a new provider doesn't mean new cans. We will continue with the old cans, and that won't mean that everybody gets new cans. Jackie, my question to you is in 2015, 2016, what was the percent that the town subsidized waste pickup? Do you recall that?
I don't recall. If you made me guess, I'm gonna say it's less than 50%.
Right. Each year, it seems
Yes.
like we're going
Yes, sir.
closer to closer
Agreed.
to break even. And I'm gonna go with the 60% also.
61.
So,
61.
so the estimated fees then moving forward would be 144?
Yeah, we'll verify the estimated, yes.
Right.
Which is still cheaper than if we passed on the 600,000 to the consumer. So I know it sounds like we're playing like political math, but it actually is a better value for all the citizens involved.
So Kevin, do you feel like you've got enough information?
Clear
for the
direction,
board to-
yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. We will work towards getting you a contract. Couple other little things, and I'll try to move quickly. I am going to propose to add an erosion control inspector to my staff this year. That, of course, this will be a fee-funded position through our land development department. We currently have about 101 open erosion control permits in town. Those 101 open permits equals over 2,000 disturbed acres currently under development. Per our state requirements, each one of these open permits requires a monthly inspection. If you do the math, it just gets to be a lot of work for one person. We currently just have one erosion control inspector. And that position also has lots to do other than just inspecting these sites. There's pre-construction meetings, we just got done doing an audit with our state, and I'm happy to report to you guys that our first, since starting our erosion control delegation, we had our first state audit this week, and our preliminary, the word from the auditors was that they're going to continue our delegation, which is basically the best we could do. They had really good things to say about our program, so we're happy about that. But all that to be said, our current erosion control inspector, numerous citizen complaints, mud on the road, all these things just take away from actually inspecting the sites, which is, a key component to our program.
So the ad would be covered with the fees that developers,
That's correct,
et cetera,
yeah.
would be paying? Okay.
That's right, yeah. So this would not hit the general fund budget. This would be through our fee-funded land development.
Okay.
Then I'll talk briefly about the public works. It's not different than the major and everybody else is telling you. Ryan, I guess this morning's presentation, he's bringing too many jobs to Huntersville, so we don't have enough people to work. It continues to be a great challenge to recruit and retain public works crews. You guys know I currently have 16. That's from crew leader down, so that's not counting Steve and our superintendent position, but we got four crews of 4 people for 16 approved positions. Of those 16, I've got 5 vacancies. So Commissioner Boone, there's your 4-man concrete crew right there, vacant. So that, we've been, carrying on, keeping on and trying to get as much done as we can, but it's with a limited staff. As you see, we haven't been fully staffed. I put 2+ years. I didn't go back past that. I'm sure that we haven't been fully staffed in well over 2 years. Just a couple statistics, and I kind of, as the Chief Totoli said yesterday, it almost makes it look like I'm running a bad organization up here, but at the risk of sounding like I'm running a bad organization, 7 of our 11 current employees have 1 year or less of service. So that speaks to the amount of turnover that we're seeing. 9 of our current employees have less than 5 years of service. So the experience and the longevity in our department is suffering. This past year, we sent out 8 employment offers that weren't just, some of them didn't even call us back. They gave us nothing. And then we've had 7 resignations rather in the last year. We do exit interviews just to make sure that we're not running a bad organization, and they're leaving for either more money or a better opportunity. They can go run a forklift in a warehouse out of the sun, out of the snow, and make more money than we're offering. So I know you guys yesterday said, you like that when somebody presents a problem, they also present a solution, and unfortunately, I don't have a solution.
Commissioner Phillips.
So this summer, one of the road crews who we had hired third party to work on Vance Road Extension, they came in my store almost every day. I spent every single day, 4 weeks, trying to get them to come work for the town. I'm not kidding you. I gave them Kevin's number because I knew they were good workers. They were driving 1.5 hour one way to Huntersville to work. We couldn't touch what they made. Our numbers to blue collar workers are quite insulting. We're paying like fast food wages at this point to people who are keeping our town running. And the fix to Kevin's problem is to pay more money, because that's how manual labor jobs and hard work jobs go. Like, you're not gonna give me the warm fuzzies if I'm out pouring concrete in 100 degrees in July. So, I mean, that's the reality of their problem, is to throw money at it. And then hopefully we can get into that competitive market. Because when you talk about like short-term or benefits and this and that, people don't care. They want their bag. Like, that's what it comes down to. Their money.
Commissioner Munger.
Jackie, I'm gonna ask something of you, and I just try to write out this question because it's kind of to this end. And I can give this to you. Would it be possible to get a graph of the percentage of positions filled by department and town overall for the last 10 years? Because I have this gut feel that at some point 10 years ago, we used to be up maybe 80, 90, and now we're trending downwards into a point where we need to actually address the fact that we're just not paying people enough. And it's just become overly competitive, and we need to figure out how to get the advantage back to people in these positions.
So if you look at what's not on the agenda is an HR presentation, or I had a scheduling conflict, she's not available. We tentatively have her scheduled for the first meeting in February.
Okay.
For the pre-meeting. I don't know that she's got, I don't know that she's, I don't know that she's got 10 years on the chart, but I will ask her for it, and she'll either tell you then she can get it or she can't. Thank you for your patience.
Literally, I just looked through
Yeah.
my agenda. It was like, I don't see HR, so I'm just gonna ask it now.
Well-
So, thanks.
Can go to Commissioner Kovac. She had
What
her hand
is the pay range for these guys?
So our, I mean, of course, it's different, you know, and we have different vacancies at different times. Just so happens right now, our vacancies are 1 crew leader and 4 operators. And
Jackie's gonna
yeah,
pull it up.
Jackie, I don't have that.
Kevin, could you comment on, because the board was very helpful last year. Problem is, you know, everybody else raised too. What is the, and I think we looked at it the other day, you know, we were below 15 at one time that we were sort of hiring folks.
Yeah,
I think at least we've hired here lately,
yeah, our
16.
minimum, our very minimum, we're starting out people at like 1775.
It's insulting.
So,
I can work at Walmart or
Public
McDonald's
Works
for
Tech
more than-
range is 33.8 to 52.2. I don't know when you've hired anybody at minimum pay.
No.
A motor equipment operator is 41.5 to 66,000.
And I want to point out too, 1 crew leader and 4 operators, that's a project that we're not completing. So if we want to meet our projects, you gotta pay people to be here to do the work.
So with this lack of, or with this amount of vacancies, are we paying more to, are we having to pay more to,
Contractors.
contract out?
Yep. So we have said, you know, I've told Kevin, look, if we can't hire people, you just have to continue contract out, you know, try not to slow down projects, just, you know, let's keep moving, but unfortunately, it is what it is. And we have, like I said, he just told you, thank you for y'all allowing us to bump it up last year, but county is literally moving to, I'm just picking on the county here, moving to everybody $20 an hour to go sit in a, not to be negative, to go monitor a gym. I'm sure that's hard work, but I'd rather do that than probably, you know, go do that shovel. And we had to move just part-time salaries up to monitor gym to 15 just to compete. And it's tough.
Commissioner Kidwell.
Well, you know what they say, the government has an endless supply of money.
Deep pockets.
Deep pockets. We just keep taxing people more. That's how we'll pay for it.
Commissioner Boone.
Did you finish, Rob?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. 2 questions. You said that you've lost 7 or 8 people in the last year. Has anybody come back?
We've had a couple people express some interest, but nobody has actually come back.
Okay, and you also said that, you made a statement that people left because of better work conditions, more pay, and you said snow, right? Did you use the word snow?
I believe I did say snow, yeah.
I believe you did use it,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
didn't have
I
any
have.
snow days. And that was one of the things that HR was gonna bring back to us in December of last year about a snow day policy. So here it comes to hurting us get our projects done.
On to that, do you think that if the pay were better, that snow would be an issue?
Potentially. I mean, I can't say yes or no. It's pretty infrequent that we have snow, obviously,
Right.
but when we do, it taxes our guys.
Right.
I mean, for sure. And another component that it's not, only we are having struggles with, but the new CDL driver's license requirements that were just implemented are taking a toll on everyone. They've made it much more difficult to get a CDL license. It's 5 weeks of training at a cost of about $5,000 or $6,000 per employee. And it's really discouraging people from getting their CDLs. But in turn, what that's doing is that's driving prices up. Because now, when they go through that effort, they get the CDL license, everybody's hiring CDL drivers.
Are you working with the Marinkus campus to
So,
put
yeah,
folks?
yeah,
I
and
mean,
this,
because
like
we
I say,
do
this
have
is-
it right here.
Right, and so we're tied in with the NC State University, the LTAP, local assistance, or local technical assistance program that does a lot of our training, and we're trying to urge them to take on the programs. We've reached out to the community colleges, we've reached out to everybody. The problem is like the Marinkus campus, they're training over-the-road drivers that drive 53-foot tractor trailers up and down the interstates. We need dump truck drivers. But once I get a guy trained to that level, now he can go to Walmart and make $100,000 a year driving
Right.
a Walmart truck.
Ooh, Commissioner Kidwell?
Kevin, I've worked for companies in the past where if they were gonna train me on something, I had to sign a contract with them, not so much a non-compete, but that I was gonna guarantee that, hey, if you're gonna pay for my education, I'm gonna stay with you for
Sure,
4 years, 5 years. Do we have that?
We don't currently, but we have been talking and working with Laura in the HR department about implementing something like that. So far, we've only sent one employee to training. And fortunately, he has stuck around, but if we're making that investment, we've researched how we can at least keep you or make you pay it back.
Commissioner Phillips?
Just over here doing some mathing again. So going up the 9% on the trash contract, that frees up around 198, 22 times 9. So you knock off the 150 for the fleet, which 3 departments, AKA the whole town benefits from, then you got 48,000 left. So there's your play money a little bit to do raises for Kevin and them. And they need to if they need to do signing bonuses, et cetera, because I can tell you right now, we have somebody who comes in our store that's moving down here, CDL driver. I was like, oh, you should come work for, no. Like, I mean, they had looked at town jobs and he cut me off real fast because he can go a mile down the road to another business and make double what the town makes or pays you. And you can't fault people for that.
Commissioner Partee, do you have anything to weigh in on this topic?
No.
Okay, thank you, guys. I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
All right, so, we are going to take a bit of a break, and we will be back in 15.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you, everybody. I know that was a much-needed break. We've been going at it all morning. We're going to transition to Parks and Rec. Michael J. Cox, how are you this morning?
Wonderful.
We're going to turn it over to you. That says Fire Department,
There we go.
but it is Parks and Rec. Great.
I usually just start out usually with our vision and mission, and I won't read through this whole thing, but in summary, pretty much our goal is to connect the community to parks and recreation resources. That's facilities, programs, and so forth. And connecting them might be infrastructure, or it might be we actually go to those communities who don't have access to parks and programs. That's working with churches or nonprofits and so forth. They're trying to reach everybody in the community, no matter where they live. No matter how long they lived here, they might have been here for 1 day or 50 years. We want to reach all of them and connect and bring the community together. Quickly on some park visitors, we have traffic counters, and you all have seen this before. We have traffic counters at Huntsville Athletic Park, North Meck Park, Richard Berry Park, and Bradford Park. And the traffic counter counts the cars that come in. We use a national average of 2.5 people per car. And as you can see, we've been tracking these same 4 parks since 2010. Once again, we had record attendance in fiscal year '22, just shy of 1.5 million visits, which is 4% increase from the previous year. If you look at it as a whole, since 2010, these exact same parks, we have an additional 560,000 yearly visits, which is 61%. So, you know, we add parks and we add amenities, other locations, but the existing parks are getting more and more use, which increases our day-to-day operations to maintain our parks. But once again, you always hear about parking issues in the parks. Well, now you know why. They're heavily used. Just quickly, some program highlights. These are some of the new programs we offer, as well as some of the programs that we expanded. Howdy Huntersville is part of Lockabooza series, but different twists and creative theme for that. Many Athletes is a preschool sports program that we run and continue to have waiting lists. We've added like 2 or 3 sessions every season. They're still filling up. Wine on the Vine was the first year we did that downtown. It was supposed to be 50 people, ended up being over 100. Every time we have an event, people want to know when's the next Wine on the Vine, which I think is in the springtime. So something different, get people out into the trails, get them downtown. Nothing But Net's a spring and fall basketball program. Volunteers used to run that. They retired, couldn't run no more. Our staff has done a great job of taking over that program and continuing to grow it. Adult Recess is one of those new things with young adults, play your old sports, kickball, dodgeball. I think we had about 100 each time we've offered that. Every time we have an event, people come up to the tent, want to know when the next time Adult Recess is. That different target market that we've been challenged to reach. Adult Night Out, another program that's been very popular. Also trying to reach teens has been challenging. We've done a few teen camp and lock-ins. Now those are growing. We do lock-ins at the rec center or we go camping. So reaching those teens, video game nights. So these are just some of the new ones that have had success and continue to try to build off. Disc golf, anytime we have a disc golf tournament, that usually fills up within 10 minutes. So just a variety of new programs and expanded programs. Also, you all have heard me over the years about summer camps always being full and we turn a lot of people away in summer camps. We're now starting to get a lot of calls about other programs, but we have waiting lists on people calling that they can't get in. So we actually looked at last calendar year at all of our programs, and we had 77 programs that had a waiting list in 2022, which included 634 people on those waiting lists. With the help from the board last year, with us taking 2 part-time positions we couldn't fill and had a full-time position, which has been filled, has helped us add programs to take some more people in these programs. The youth volleyball clinics that are during the wintertime, that's more restricted because of gym space. We're turning away, I think we turned away 99 girls this past winter from those camps. It's a 5-week clinic. So these other programs, now it's more than just summer camp. It's kind of hitting everywhere. The popularity of our programs keep on growing. And we'll continue to look with staff and how can we continue to take more participants. Even our after-school program, we got a waiting list of like 13 or 14 in that. So we're looking at our resources, how to best try to take more people. Turning this facility into a community facility will help tremendously, as well as a lot of these programs to expand, maybe another after-school site, more preschool programs. So that, this facility will be heavily used for not only rentals, but for our programs as well. And this is just a snapshot of some of the different leagues. Obviously, soccer and baseball are co-sponsor leagues. I was showing these graphs that you can tell, okay, COVID hit, and now you can see pretty much everything's almost pretty much back to what pre-COVID numbers are and continue to grow. So this is just 5 of the sports that I just want to share, just show an example. I mean, everything's back to normal, if not above normal.
Hey, Michael, what's the dip with soccer participation from?
Yeah, I was asking Thomas about that, because they, you know, they grew and took on additional clubs outside of Huntersville, which some of them had Huntersville participants. So we're trying to get an understanding of why that number changed like that.
Right. Commissioner Kidwell?
Oh, wait, I want to go back to parking once you're complete.
Okay. You want to talk about parking?
Once you're done with the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then, of course, we talked a little about the 150th event. So the one thing I wanted to mention, which I mentioned earlier, these are 4 main events, but once again, I mentioned we're going to tie in our existing events and other things into the 150th as well. I think a lot of people have enjoyed the scavenger hunt of trying to find the T-shirts in the parks and so forth. That seems to be a hit for people trying to find free swag. We did do a benchmark study. We reached out to 12 Parks and Rec agencies that were either similar in size to us or a growing community or within our area. So these are the 8 communities that respond, including us. And the population numbers, we wanted to make sure the population numbers all come from the same site instead of just pulling what people say their population are. So all these populations came from the North Carolina Demographers website. As you can tell, we're the second most populated in this list. There are some that are a lot less than we are, but there's others like Holly Springs that's growing dramatically. It might be only 41,000 that are growing. So we wanted to benchmark ourselves against other communities, see how they're operating. A lot of times, you know, you're operating, we want to get an idea of how other people are operating. So this helped us get information. Some of them provide us more information than others, such as organizational charts, how they made up from a standpoint of operating the parks, from maintenance programs. So we're still looking at this information. I just figured I'd share what we got so far. So the one thing we looked at is we asked about operational budgets. So the average out of those 8 communities, which includes us, is $4.86 million. Ours is $3.78 million. Revenue per year, the average is $1.88. Ours was $2.28. And the cost recovery average was $23.6. Ours was $29.8. The National Recreation and Park Association does a study, I think it was 2 years ago. The national average is 19%. Holly Springs had the highest cost recovery, and we had the second highest out of this group. Full-time employees, average is 32. Ours is 25. The only thing we noticed, there was a big difference between all the communities. We're the only one that does the building maintenance. I'm not trying to get rid of building maintenance. It's just stating that we do that, and the other 7 don't. Now, there's 2 communities that do have pools. Obviously, pools are a big increase in staffing as well. There's no park department is created equally. Everybody maintains different things. Everybody maintains things differently. Even a baseball field, each baseball field is not equal too. If you got a field at one park location that's used for leagues and that's it, and you got 4 fields at a tournament complex that's used year round, one takes more maintenance than the other. But this is the best snapshot we can take. So the average for soccer fields, you'll see, I don't have to read through all this, but everybody knows we're very, very heavily related to active fields, active spaces, kind of what Parks and Rec in Huntersville is known for. Over the years, we've kind of balanced that out with other amenities that we have. But you can tell we have twice as many soccer fields, twice as many baseball, softball fields. And as you get further down, we're kind of about the same as some of these other categories. We're a little bit low on trails. And then the pools, Chapel Hill and Gastonia are the only 2 organizations that have pools. And Chapel Hill is the only one that has indoor pools. Gastonia has 2 outdoor pools. So once again, those 2 organizations have high staffing levels because they do have pools, especially inside pools.
I have a question about trails. Does your number include the county trails or just Huntersville maintained?
That includes the county greenways and includes our trails as well as our nature trails and stuff like that. All right, so our 2030 Parks and Rec Master Plan. So the one thing we wanted to make sure when 2020, when the board approved that we want to keep that in the forefront. Whatever we're doing, we need to go back to the plan based on the public input on why we're doing what we're doing. And I'd just like to highlight some of the key findings, mentioning trails. Also, we're doing a lot of trails now, but that was the number one thing people wanted. So you see that list, that's in order of votes. The one thing on that list we haven't done was a splash pad, so we'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. So we continue to try to hit on that list, talking about programs and then common themes, parking. It's talking about we had lack of parking, so we've added 250 parking spaces in existing parks in the last 2 years. So at Bradford Park, at Huntsville Athletic Park, CPCC, and then of course we're adding another 125 this year between Weymouth Park and Berry Park. So we're working our way to try to get more parking in.
I'll just stop you there. So, my daughter, she goes to Charlotte Independent Soccer, so I'm down there on Wednesdays and Fridays. And this past year, this past, I guess it's fall, that we were be able to park up at the top parking, and that was completely blocked off. So parking, I'm glad to hear we're adding spaces, and I know that was something we were looking forward to, adding. People were parking all over. I mean, they were driving off the street into CMS's front grass there. I'm sure that they've sent you a few complaints about the tire marks.
No, but we know about the issues and we're trying
Yeah.
to address them, but yes, it was a mess.
So how many spaces are we adding to Richard Berry?
So that top area added 98 parking spaces.
Thank you. I was curious. Because I got, being there, the other parents on the soccer teams are like, hey, why can't we park there? When we get in parking? I'm like, it's coming, I just don't know when.
So
now
one
I
of the
know.
things, when Berry Park was built in 2008, looking back, you got 6 fields. Well, guess what? The 6 fields turned into 14 fields.
Yeah.
So the parking becomes an issue. So we're lucky we've got the school next to us. A lot of times they'll open up their parking lot for us. And we try not to schedule the gym use the same time as a big soccer event because guess what? The barn and gym use the same parking lot. That's challenges.
And just as a side note, no, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what people might not know is there's a small trail down there as well. A little walking trail that a lot of people take advantage of.
And that's one of the locations we're looking at this golf course as well, trying to get more disc golf on that side. So, you see this chart about what we currently have in 2020 and what we need in the future. So what we've done is we've created a tracking spreadsheet, so every year we can kind of update this. This is not every single amenity you see in a park, but it's the major amenities. And so the first column shows what we had when the plan was adopted in 2020, what we had in our system. That 194,000 square feet, HFA is a recreation facility. You have to be a member, but it's still a recreation facility. So we included their square footage, and also we included our school gym square footages. Now, school gyms, once again, you can't always have access to them. High school gym is not as very accessible as much as a Huntsville Elementary School gym because of not having 6, 7, 8 sports teams you're dealing with. So each square foot is not equal, I guess is the best way. But we want to show it as a whole, knowing that we rely heavily on the school use gyms, which have been a big benefit for us from a standpoint of getting gym space.
Talking about gym space, I know CMS is looking at, in the potential bond package, a brand-new middle school off of Stumptown, and may want to talk with CMS about that court space and the potential to utilize some of that.
What we did at Bradley Middle School, not Bradley, Alexander Middle School, when they built the new facility, we didn't put any money up front, but we made an agreement where we maintained the soccer field, the baseball fields. So that was a better approach from the standpoint, we didn't have to put up $500,000 or $250,000. So maybe we try to approach it that way. That also would help us with fields as well.
Commissioner Phillips?
Are these county numbers included too, or just town?
Well, let's see, so Blythe Landing would be the only one in Harnsville that they have a playground at. So it doesn't include the Blythe Landing.
It doesn't have Roll Hill either, because Blythe Landing and Roll Hill have picnic shelters, so that would put us
Oh,
at
okay.
10. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, no.
What is,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it
right.
doesn't include that, no.
okay,
Yeah.
so that should be a little positive, at least got 2 more.
I probably wouldn't include Blythe Landing, that one's Cornelius,
Yes.
so I wouldn't
It
include
is.
that one.
So I didn't include it, that's why I didn't include it.
Okay.
So you'll see that list, since 2020, we've had our first ever dog park people asked for. We added another outdoor fitness. We added 6 pickleball courts, would have been a huge hit, but then you see a red number further down. There's a -2. Well, we lost two tennis
courts.
or 6 pickleball, which I think in the end, those 2 tennis courts have never been used as much as those 6 pickleball courts that are on those courts now. Then we added 3 miles of trails. Some of that's our greenways, some of that's our paved trail at Bradford we added. Some of it's a 1.5 mile nature trail we built at Bradford. The trails at Rosedale. So we've added 3 trails in 2 years, or 3 miles of trail in 2 years. And you see currently funded, we're adding 12 more miles of trails, and a lot of that's the partnerships with Mecklenburg County we'll talk about. Then we talk about identifying a future CIPs in 5 years. That kind of shows some additional amenities. That might be the expansion of the rec center or of Bradford Park. And then additional need, that part of our master plan said this is something you need in addition when you hit the population of 85,000. And then the last column is you minus what you added or going to add. This is what we got left. So really, if you add this building as a rec facility, this is another 8,000 square feet, I think. So that drops down the indoor space down to 12,000. And then we also requesting our operating capital for Berry Park to do a fitness station and a disc golf course. So we get a lot of requests for disc golf on the west side of 77, have to come all the way to Bradford. Here's a few pictures of some of the improvements from the last 12 months. Resurfaced North Meck Park basketball court. So on the left is the new surface, and on the right is what it looked like previous. Also, y'all know about downtown Greenway Phase 2 has been completed. We actually put a trail counter on this trail a couple weeks ago, so hopefully the next couple months we'll have some data on how many people are actually using it. The counter's it's in Holbrook Park. As you come up the trail before you get to Sherwood, it's right, I don't want to tell you where it's at, you might go take it, but it's on the trail.
What kind of counter is this?
It's like a little laser, not a laser, but it's a beam that you can't see. All of a sudden you walk by and it counts you.
So squirrels, is the squirrel high, is it?
Well, the squirrel goes running back and forth and he stands up, he might get it.
It's all right.
Bradford Park, so we added about 2/3 of a mile of paved walking trail at Bradford Park. I mentioned last year, the big challenge here is you have people walking from across the street. They're walking in the driveway. So not only did it take them out of the street, trying to walk down to the playground, gives them a place to walk, do laps while their kids are playing softball. Also gives them access to the playground without having to walk down the driveway. So it's been getting a lot of use and another additional amenity at Bradford. So now at Bradford, if you want to walk in nature on natural surface trail, you can do that on the other side of the park. If you want a paved accessible trail, you can do that on the softball side. And then Rosedale, believe it or not, next month will be 12 months since this opened. And another benefits of having cameras in our parks, we can actually see how busy our parks are at certain times of the day. So you can pull up this camera and see the parking lot fill up, what times they're filling up. And I really thought 12 months by now, I figured the numbers would slow down, but this park's been a huge hit. No matter what time of the day, middle of winter time, getting tons of use. Once again, we built this park like the residents told us they wanted it to be. They wanted passive areas, they want to be able to get into the woods, they want a fenced-in playground, we did that, they want a dog park. So to me, 12 months later, it's been a huge hit and it continues to get a lot of use. And not as sexy is our new buildings for park operations as well as police departments. So hopefully, end of next month, that will be completed. Once again, no one sees this, but it's
Sexy's in the eye of the beholder, sir. All right, I see space.
yeah. So we need a lot of space for what we're doing. The operation keeps on growing to maintain the parks that we have. So this is definitely needed. And we have stuff stored all over the place, so be able to get everything in one location is going to be good.
And you know, with fellow board members, we talked about the new town hall. That's government building right there. Cinder block gray. That is what I'm talking about.
It has the good accents.
I won't go through all these, but these are the 11 current projects that we have. They're all at different levels. I have slides for each one I'll go through real quick, and y'all have seen these before. So Torrance Creek Trib number 2, which we're participating in part of this project. This is the one that goes through Rosedale under that new I-77 tunnel to the park and ride. Light clearing's already started. We're hoping to have some type of groundbreaking ceremony probably next month or so for that. You know, we're celebrating the year of the trail, so this, a good way to celebrate that is have an official groundbreaking. So hopefully the next 12, 18 months, should be complete. North Mac Park Greenway, so we're about 90% plans on this. We actually met with members of the HOA yesterday about the easement that we need to connect our neighborhoods, so we feel like that's moving in the right direction. We're hoping if everything continues moving in the right direction, we get the easements we need. We're hoping to start sometime this summer. So that'll be part of next year's budget. The Park Greenway, that was the one, the CRTPO grant we have, and that's the one that we signed the agreement with the state to move up funding. They moved the funding up for us to start design this year. And then Lower McDowell Creek Greenway, that design's already underway, so we're excited about that. It's a long section of Greenway, about 3.6 miles, takes you from the existing Greenway down to Bates Ford Road. This is the one we did the partnership of paying for design and the county's paying for the construction. Same thing with this one. This is another agreement with the county. So this is going out to the east side. As Stephen was talking about having roads all over town. So if you look at all these Greenway projects, we got one to the far east, to the far west. We got one going down south to the park. We got one going up north towards Burkdale. So we're kind of hit, and we got one on the northeast side with the Greenway at North Mac Park. So we're kind of hitting all parts of the town with greenways. Once again, this is a long segment as well, over 3 miles. And then this is the one that's been piecemealed so far, trying to get it started. Is they got the parking lot completed on Gilly Road, which you all talked about the cameras yesterday. So this is the section going under Gilly, getting back up to Burkdale Commons Parkway, going north. And this is just a quick swath. So if you look at the projects we just talked about, all this in green that's highlighted will be all connected. So the hope is, the next 4 or 5 years, all this is on the ground. I did want to make an update. So our tunnel under Highway 21, like I mentioned, it was going to be a competitive with the PED projects. There was 14 PED projects submitted. Right now, there's 6 being recommended for funding, and ours is one of the 6, so thank you to Heather and Tracy. So ours ranked 3rd out of the 14, so appreciate you all helping us support that. If we get that tunnel, and we already have the tunnel under 77, I think there's like 14 lanes of traffic we avoid crossing by going under. So I think long-term, people 5, 10 years from now might say, well, this made sense. So if it wasn't for you all to support that, it wouldn't have happened. So I think that's huge. Hopefully all that works out next month, gets voted in, and we'll have another tunnel. So all these trails will connect about 30,000 residents and adds over 10 miles of trail. And this is real quick. This is the Rosedale, not the Rosedale, this is Berry Park parking lot we just talked about. That's the 98 parking spaces. And that's also the new restroom building. So, we talked about, should we expand the lower one or add a new one? Last year the board said, let's just add a new one at the top. So we have a new one that will have a little shelter area that will overlook the fields down below. So once again, additional parking and additional restroom facilities. That is the big complaints we always hear. I get all the Google reviews that people put on our parks. I get emails when we get those. This one's all about restrooms and parking. So we hopefully start that. That's been submitted for permit, hopefully start this summer.
Say, Mike, the restroom at Richard Berry Park, is that closed at night? Do they lock that up at night?
Sometimes, not every night, but sometimes we do.
Okay, have you had any other issues with that park, vandalism?
Well, we put cameras up now. The police did catch the last vandalism.
Yeah, okay.
So we do have cameras. We have cameras at all of our restrooms now, except for, I think, Holmes Athletic Park.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hopefully that deters some of that.
Just, Mike, so just point,
Outside.
when you say
Outside.
it's outside the restrooms, it's not inside the
No.
restroom. I just want to make sure there was.
To be clear,
No, Larry hasn't done that yet, so.
let's not say yet.
All right, so the splash pad, so if you all recall last year, this project was further back in our CIP. But last year, I'm glad the board did, the board moved that up. When y'all approved that, like Anthony mentioned, that number we had of $425,000, we knew that was 4 years old probably. So price is a lot higher than that. Okay, that's bad news. The good news is, the good news is other projects we've done have come way under. We got a lot of savings. So that's some good news. So we went ahead and looked at both North Meck and Weymouth. The original idea was to be at North Meck, but some of the public input means Weymouth really, the community really wants a splash pad there. So we don't have enough money to do both of them, but to be able to move money from the projects that we had savings on, we could still at least do one of them. And so I'm gonna let Nick Lowe is from McAdams. He's done a lot of splash pads and so forth, so I'll let him walk through our two designs.
So, happy to be here to present these. These are some really, I think, good additions to these two parks. And one of the things we looked at is we had a budget for looking at, splash pad components, so like the elements like a dump bucket and the ability to upgrade in the future. There's some ways to do that to save some money. So for both of these, one thing to keep in mind, we looked at tank systems. So this would be a recirculating system. So with that comes a lot of the cost is the way the health department thinks about it, it's like a pool. So with North Meck Park, we have a really good opportunity because we have an old concession stand. So we're looking at renovating part of that concession stand as our pool room. And so utilizing that, and then of course, right adjacent is just this nice flat area for a splash pad that could really tie in with the existing picnic shelter and playground. So a lot of our focus here was, provide this nice little area that would be gated because due to code, that would be a gated area for the splash pad. But then also looking at, how do we most easily connect and upgrade? We'll have to upgrade some water and upgrade some connections into that existing room that we've been making. But looking at, you move the flagpole, bringing people in that shoots you off into the trail, into the rest of the park. And one thing with this is we're able to make all these accessible, no ramps, no steps. So there is a little bit of money in that with some grading and adding that in, but we feel like we've created just a real good space to come and be with your family and, enjoy this splash pad. This is a 1,200 square foot splash pad, so I think we looked at it's probably, we could hold about 9 people was the number we saw. So this is the bigger of the two splash pads. Also, the entry to creating this one would be a lot easier. And you can also see some of the components so that we went with a nature theme. And the idea is you can actually take some of these and swap them to another park if you have another splash pad. So you have the ability to trade components around and rework the splash pad or get another. So, moving over to Weymouth. This one's a little bit less conducive to construction just because of the way the sewer works with that restroom. It actually has a sewage tank, kind of typical little lake house where you pump the sewage back up to a sewer line. So this one's a little bit more difficult, but it does work well, and you can kind of tuck it into right behind the existing restroom building. So playing baseball, you could run out here and play, and then also in with this, we know this is a separate bucket of money. We talked about parking, just really looking at reworking all those angled parking and doing it more 90 degree. You gain a lot more spaces in here. So really, we're looking at reworking that, and also the ADA access back into the community center. So some improved access up to the park and to the community center. Also with this one, I'll move to the next picture. So you can see how this one lays out. We really lay them out in these nice little courtyards where you can come sit and everybody can play, and it's a contained area. So really good for families to be in. But this one would require an additional building for the pump house. So there just really wasn't conducive to upgrading that small restroom. So this one has a little bit more building construction, and it would be a smaller pad, 900 square feet, so just a little bit smaller than North Meck. That's it.
Any questions regarding the splash pads, Commissioner Boone?
Yes, will this, the Weymouth Park be fenced?
Yes, it would be fenced as well, yes, sir.
And Michael, my second question, North Mecklenburg Park, have you contacted Electric Cities to see if they have any grant money since the project's in their service area?
Some people can actually visualize and see what's coming out there, and might be able to, the Pons Club is splash pad, and there's maybe some opportunities with that, or Road Club, or
think Kim's pretty familiar with the Electric City grant money, so she might be your contact on that.
I know we've got some electricity that went for ARP stuff in the past.
Right.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes, Michael, with the components being interchangeable, we planning on, I don't know, every season or every few months swapping those out to kind
So-
of change it up?
So, you know, because right now we're only doing one pad, but if we did 2 pads, you can make those pads look different. You know, if it's every season, you come out, oh, I didn't see that last year, so it gives you something new to look at. It's probably not something you would do like every week or every
Oh,
month.
no, I'm not saying every week, but.
Or like seasonal probably,
Right.
something like that. Now, if you bid the project together, which obviously is a lot more money to do that, you're talking about another $1 million if we want to do both of them. But if you did them both at the same time, then you're guaranteed to get the same vendor. So.
Just
the
another
question
penny
is-
of the tax rate.
So what we're doing, like what you see here, it's going to be open up to anybody to bid who can have substitutions that meet the same qualifications, meaning what you see here is still going to be a competitive bid process. There's multiple manufacturers that do this type of stuff, so we just got to show some type of element where people know what they're bidding on, and they can just submit substitutions that are equal to what we want. But if you get a different manufacturer next time, then almost might not be able to be swapped out, so.
So what I heard you say, Michael, is, are you looking for direction now from the board?
Yeah, preferably, so if, I guess there's 2 questions. Well, one's a money question, but, you know, if you wanted to do 2, then also it's gonna be over $1 million more. If you're only doing 1, or we're sticking with North Mac, if we wanna look at doing Waymer, or feedback like that would be helpful.
Commissioner Phillips?
So it's the one, I guess, who's led the charge on this splash pad. Like, I can't believe it. Like, this is really happening. I would rather start with 1, and the only reason is I don't want to lock us into a vendor we've never done business for 2 projects. And then if we do have issues or faults, and even we need to have a grace period for learning lessons, I think that kind of gives Park and Rec a buffer so that we don't take on 2 things that could be nightmares in the future. We learn from the one, get our best practices, and then roll on to the Waymer one, because that one will be more work to configure.
Yes.
And I want to make sure the one that's going into Waymer is like, all options have been explored, we're doing the right thing, but I would rather start with North Mech and then go from there, if that makes sense.
You said start at North Met?
Yeah, because we don't know, like, I'm not trying to bash a vendor, but you don't know what you don't know when you're going into business with someone, so, and this is a new world for us. So that way, we can kind of have like a pilot program.
Well, the other piece I heard was that the North Mech one would be less expensive
Yes. And it's
than
very-
this one, so there's an added there.
There's also some cost savings we talked about yesterday. Not doing the recirculation system would save a lot of money by not going to that system. I understand less maintenance as well. But if you have water restrictions one summer, you can't run it. The recirculation system, I understand, you could run that still because you're not using as much water.
Oh.
So it's kind of one of those things, well, you can save a good $150,000 by getting away from.
So what Mike was talking about is there's 2 ways to do a system. It's a pass-through, so you're just, water passes through, goes straight to sewer. You don't treat it. It has less health restrictions. You don't have to have the chemical room and all that, but if you do have water restrictions, it's gonna cut you off there. That's the beauty of the recirculation system. But the other thing with the pass-through is you don't have a lot of maintenance. You're not bringing it up, bringing it down, changing filters. So there's balances to everyone on that. So I guess it really depends on your feeling with just dumping water down the sewer. So.
I would say we probably need to do a little research on it. I do have a little bit of experience with them, and make sure, see what other places are doing. I know McAdam knows all about it. And give you the pros and cons. Obviously, there's some money saving. But what I would tell you is we budgeted $425 because we didn't know what these would come back at. But MJ told you earlier that we have some savings from at least one of the park projects, and I think we'll be able to suck it up to pay for the North Mac Park project. So we should be able to do that one, and we'll look at options on how much cost savings and maintenance, because maintenance on these things can be a bear. But they have come a long way.
And one of the other benefits too is, you'll get a warm day in October. To start one up that's not recirculating, you can just flip a switch. But if you drain your system, the circulation system, well, it's a very process to get it back up and running.
Commissioner Phillips?
But we'll get all that information to everybody.
The recirculation one, does that, I know, gosh, I'm so in the weeds, I'm so sorry. But is that how like Legionnaires is more prominent and is using systems like that versus the through system?
I wouldn't say so, just because there's lots of fail-safes within that they have a UV light, they have certain chemicals and things like that. I mean, you can see that sometimes, but the way the technology has gone, that's kind of part of that standard to make sure some of those things don't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
There's one more comment. We also want to think about, obviously, the partnership we have with the county at Waymer. I know we're talking North Mac Park, and we have a CDBG grant that we have, that we have tied into that facility. So we just need to do a little more homework, make sure are we committed with the CDBG grant, and MJ may already know this, to make sure that there's a splash pad. I don't know that it has to go now. That could be a later phase. We just need to clarify all that. But I hear it appears that more, I assume, I don't know, I didn't look all around the room, but.
We haven't gone around the room
Right,
yet.
so I'll be quiet. Maybe y'all may say go to Waymer, I don't know.
So, anyone else want to weigh in on the recommendation of starting at North Mac Park?
Works for me.
Commissioner Kovacs? Okay, Commissioner Kidwell?
I would rather start at Waymer and work with the county, because they're about to do a lot of work over there. I think there's an opportunity there.
Commissioner Partee?
I'm more interested in, I see that North Mac Park has a lot of facilities and a lot of availability to the community in that north area. Waymer does not have a lot of facilities. And I am going to side with Commissioner Kidwell about, I like to see Waymer be the premier on this particular splash pad because of the fact that North Mac has a lot of facilities available to that community and not Waymer Park and that community there.
Commissioner Booth?
Mayor, it really doesn't make any difference north or south, as long as we get something started.
One of my questions is the number of visitors that go currently to North versus Waymer. Will we, if your recommendation is North, is that because you're impacting and providing for more people?
I guess the original,
Or is it the dollars, because it's,
so the original plan we had on the CIP was North Mac.
Correct.
So I'm not really choosing one over the other. It's more of this, these are the options, and this is the difference between the two. I mean, Waymer Park, there's parking being added. This is a summer activity, so usually the ball fields aren't being used as much at Waymer because summertime, you want to host tournaments over there. And we try not to host tournaments at North Mac, but to me, it don't matter which one.
Commissioner Munger?
Sure, yeah, and just kind of want to touch base on Waymer. There are so many unknowns right now with how Waymer's being developed and that we have that whole area that Mecklenburg County has acquired, and we don't know exactly what they're going to do with it. To me, I want to see what direction that whole area is going to go into so that we can really evaluate, okay, it's moving in this direction, and that's why North Mac, everything's built, everything's there. You already know what that surrounding area looks like. So you know where everyone's coming from, what they're gonna do, and how that does fit, and it does work. The Waymer area, I think there's so many changes there on the horizon. I wanna kind of see what the plan is. And then in the end, I do think it'll probably end up making sense, but I just wanna make sure that we know exactly what's gonna happen in that area before we commit to that area.
Makes sense. Commissioner Kovacs?
I do want a splash pad at Waymer, and I've said that multiple times, but I think I'm thinking about it from a different perspective. I'm worried that a splash pad is one of the top things that people are asking for, and I'm worried that if we put the only splash pad we have in the middle of a neighborhood, that it will affect them, their daily lives, but it, you know, over the summer.
It would overwhelm.
Yeah, and so I would prefer to kind of have one set up so, to be, you know, where most people know or go to potentially for one area, so you don't have the entire area going into one neighborhood.
Right.
Like, I just worry about, because I know that some of the residents we hear from about the parking that live right across from Waymer already, the parking and it being busy, and I'm glad to see that there will be more parking there and stuff, but I just, in my head, picture this rush of people during the summer and that same resident being like, I can't even leave my house, or,
I
and
thought
I'm
the
worried
same
about that.
And because this conversation started with the previous board. The whole thought process with North Meg Park was because it is the most attended and more easily accessible to many different people, especially with the trail, and they already had the parking and the infrastructure. And what really kind of, I think, really like was the catalyst with it was National Night Out being really hot one year. And people doing like those cheesy slip and slides, because this isn't we're not picking one park or another and pitting people against each other. It's just, hey, let's start at North Neck Park, there's less air to be had. And that's where I think it comes from, is this is like, it's a pilot program. And then from there, you do your more intricate one at another park, because we know it's happening.
Okay. So do you feel like you've got what
We're
you
good.
need?
Yep.
Okay.
North Mac Park.
Okay.
But then we will
Oh,
consider
Yeah.
Waymer as our second one to clear.
Absolutely.
No, that was, I think, already discussed,
Yeah,
I figured
that's-
out last year. Yeah, that's a non-negotiation.
Good.
And a good thing about the Waymo, once again, we have visuals. We can go out to businesses. and
That's
see
right.
where to start building that.
We probably got a better chance of getting, I would say, funding, from other organizations, probably at Waymer.
Okay, I'd like us to explore that for sure.
So just quickly, Abernathy Park, once again, we had the master plan. We'll find out March 3rd if we get the $212,000 in grants. We went ahead and installed outfield fence, so that's been moved in. So at least now spring season starts, when we start our construction behind the fence, there's no interruption with their play. So we won't interrupt any spring baseball fields, baseball games and so forth. Now, if we don't get the grant, you know, some of the stuff we won't be able to do. We won't be able to do the shelter that you see at the top, the walking trail and the fitness stations. Might be able to get that, it'd be kind of close, but we'll definitely do the basketball court and playground. That's the priority, is get those away from the street. So we'll definitely start that this summer. Once we hear about the grant, we'll know which direction we can go into from a standpoint of, you know, what amenities we can get or we can't get.
Mike, one question. Glendale Drive, at our last meeting, commission meeting, we were mentioning traffic calming on that particular drive. Where are we at with that now with the residents? Did we get more requests?
Was that may be Stephen.
Yeah, we got it.
Stephen?
No, Stephen, oh, sorry.
We don't have any more citizen requests from that.
How many do we need in order to institute a investigation? Or-
Usually we have one point person, and then we look for 3 supporting folks along that road.
Okay, because it came up in the commission.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And so it could be, Commissioner could go back and get 4 signatures. Could easily do that if that's, you know, something that's out there, and then we'd activate that.
Okay, thank you.
Anthony mentioned this, so once again, Mecklenburg County's got about $900,000 and some federal dollars they're putting in at Waymer, so some of that stuff includes new playground, new shelters, bocce courts, 1 tennis court will be 3 pickleball courts, horseshoe pits, parking lot expansion in the town. We're retrofitting the basketball court to be multi-purpose, multi-use, and we're handling the paving of the walking trail as part of our, remember, we had $350,000 for our improvements for Waymer, so that's where that's coming. And so that should start this summer. Half synthetic turf infields, if you recall, we got an agreement with Lakeland Charter School. So this will start this summer, just submitted for permit this week, actually. Replaces the turf on the existing 2 infields and adding turf to the other 2 fields that the charter school uses. So this will be a huge improvement. This project this time, there will be no clay in the infield, so home plate is turf, the mound's turf, and so forth. And then some potential future projects. We always talked about expanding Holbrook Park if the opportunity presented itself, so this is just kind of an idea. And anywhere in this rectangle, if opportunities became available to expand the park, we would like to look at that and consider that. I think Jack mentioned about downtown master plan also identifies this as well. And these are just some potential amenities, more passive stuff, shelters, trails, play gardens, overlook areas. Topography up here lends itself to some really cool views and overlook areas. And then locations for park acquisition. This is in our 2030 Park Master Plan. Looking at the different areas that we would look at parkland. So you got the downtown area, southwest, northeast, northwest, and so forth. So these are pockets of areas where there's not parkland. Mecklenburg County, once again, we'll partner with them and try to, work together, identify land where we think we need parkland as well. So they're the big land purchasers. Bradford Park, Phase 3. So we've been talking to Mecklenburg County. They're updating their CIP. And one thing we talked about that they're looking to put some money in their 5-year CIP if we're looking to put money towards as well. For those who weren't here, the first phase of Bradford Park, when that was done, that was a joint development between us and Mecklenburg County. We had some bond dollars we put into it. They had some capital dollars. So the idea is we'll try to do the same thing with this. Talked to Davidson Parks Rec Director this week. They would be interested in participating too because they're getting a lot of needs for athletics like they haven't asked before. So looking for more baseball fields and so forth. So future phase.
Has there been any more discussion about the back connection, road connection?
That was part of our discussion about the funds and what it would cover to move forward. So we would look at, look at trying to help and partner with both of them to build out most of this. Now the rec center wouldn't happen because they already built the rec center. So this master plan is 18 years old, needs to be updated. They agree with that, but these are just some potential amenities based on the current master plan. And there's, obviously, there's always partnerships with clubs to try to get funds from other groups to help fund some of this. And then, of course, the big thing is, like you mentioned, getting access to Rama Church would be a big benefit, especially for the Huntsville residents.
And how many acres is this park again?
210 acres, the whole park. So this plan was done before the county purchased these parcels. So that's another reason why the plan should be updated, because now you have more land too. So we think this is the next big project of adding more athletic amenities, as well as passive amenities. And then rec center expansion, like I mentioned before, when we built the rec center, we built a structure on one side of it, beefed it up so it could be expanded in the future. So that red area is where potentially the expansion would take place, pretty much doubles the size of the space. Once again, we showed about the need of additional indoor space in our master plan. Allows us to have more indoor space, to take more people in our programs, reduce their waiting list, and so forth. And also, we talked about a larger site for an amphitheater, so we can have bigger events. Like you all know, Veterans Park's only so big and only holds so many people. Trying to find another site that can hold, 4,000 or 5,000 people for an event, if not more. One site is we talked about here is at Huntsville Athletic Park, and then of course Berry Park lends itself potentially to being a good site too, because you've got the elevation change. So that's all future.
How much parking do we have around that site to make an amphitheater work?
So this one, so you got 200. I think there's about 800 parking spots, but that does include the Lake Norman Charter School that we could run shuttles from as well. So I mean, you can, and then of course if HFA had nothing going on, we use their parking. So this area here, you have a lot of public parking in one location. Here you wouldn't have this many.
You'd have to put it in.
For parking, this is a better site because you do have the charter school, middle school that we have bus we can chart, and it's kind of connected.
We'll say during the Halloween shindig you guys had, that place was packed. There was not an empty parking spot in HFFA, the shared parking lot with CPCC, or our parking lot.
And we were anticipating potentially, we didn't advertise it too much on the fireworks because this is the first time we did fireworks there. We always have our Halloween event there, but we had fireworks. A lot of people didn't know that. So we had buses, we had our buses in the charter school parking lot just in case to shuttle people, but we quite didn't get there. But I think next time, when we advertise, everybody knows you're having fireworks, we'll have a much bigger crowd. Seeing how things operate.
It was great.
That's all I have.
I have a question, Mike. Geographically, what's the closest park to Skybrook?
Yes. Well, you probably get to Bradford.
Bradford.
It depends on where at in Scottsbrook you're at. I would, maybe Bradford, depending on where you're at. Now, Eastfield Road, Mecklenburg County is currently designing and has funded a new park on Eastfield Road. That would be the closest one.
Yeah.
But that'll be all passive. There won't be any active sports or anything like that.
So in other words, those communities on that side of our township doesn't have access to a lot of our parks.
Yeah,
So
you have to drive a good distance.
Any other questions? All right, well, since food is here,
Jackie or Janet's checking, but I would say, I've talked to Patty already. I know she's, chomping at the bit to get it done, but she's okay with, holding off and we eat.
okay, that's fair.
It's there, yeah.
All
It's-
right,
it's here.
so since it is a hot meal today, we'll go ahead and go to lunch, and when we come back, we'll pick back up with finance.
All right, can't have a hangry patty.
No
No,
hangry patty when
yeah,
she's talking
no
about
hangry
numbers.
patty.